Hello, sports world, and welcome to the First Line. I'm joined here with my good friend Michael Zingroni. I'm Taylor Snyder. Unfortunately, our friend Massimo has departed Temple University for the year. We wish him the best on his summer endeavor, so we will be taking over the show today. Mike, I got to ask you, how you feeling today, man?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I mean, we're missing Massimo. You know, the summer took him. Summer took him quick.
It did.
It's sad, but hey,
it took him
he's gone, so show goes on, man.
The show does go on. It's what Lupe Fiasco would want.
Yeah,
he would want
exactly
the show to go on.
So,
and the show will go on, and we got a very loose show. We're going to be very loose today, but at the same time, we got a lot to talk about. Mike, you want to start it off, man? What do you got for us, man?
Oh, we got a lot to talk about. I mean, draft, playoffs, all the above, everything. So I think we should start out. Let's start talking about the NFC West, and their overall, their draft. It was a weird draft for that division, I would say, but I mean, I kind of like it, especially with the Cardinals, Hassan Reddick. That's probably my favorite pick in that whole draft class. We're Temple guys, so we gotta like Hassan Reddick. But I mean, it's definitely something. I mean, it's for most part in the last couple of years, it's been a very competitive division. But last year, it was very non-competitive with the Seahawks just running away with it. And I kind of like what the Cardinals did because they were close. Carson Palmer getting older. I kind of don't like how they didn't get a quarterback really for the future because Carson Palmer is pretty much only has 1 year left. But I mean, I like how the Cardinals take a step up. Hassan Reddick has some defensive pieces so they can compete with the Seahawks this year. So I think it got a little bit more competitive, and the LA Rams got a lot more competitive too.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big takeaway, obviously, from this division, when we were at the draft, Mike, I immediately had my eyes set on the San Francisco 49ers and the picks they made in this draft. I think they did a very good job. We talked a lot about Solomon Thomas being a great guy off the edge from Stanford. I think he's a fantastic player caliber guy, played under a strong system in David Shaw at Stanford. I think this adds a lot of depth here to the Niners defense. Also, it makes a lot of sense because Palo Alto is just outside Santa Cruz. Also, another guy that I really liked him picking up, Reuben Foster. There was a lot of speculation when the Eagles were on the board there and they didn't take Reuben Foster, but then the Niners kind of took him up. And I think in the Niners' minds right now, this is almost like a steal for them because now they add these two defensive pieces. And like we were talking about earlier, the quarterback situation's not really the best in San Francisco right now currently, and you bring in C.J. Beathard, quarterback out of Iowa. There wasn't really too much said on him pre-draft-wise. He wasn't really covered too much. He wasn't really viewed upon. And also one guy I really like them picking up is Ole Miss defensive tackle DJ Jones and Utah defender Pita Tamin. Oh my God, I can't even say that last name, and it's funny because I tried saying it before the show, and now we're here on the show and I still can't pronounce it. But I'm going to give this my best butcher. Pita Taumipunu, and I'm going to assume that's kind of an Islander name here. I would assume so. That seems to be a bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to say Hawaiian. I want to say more South Pacific Islands, and I would say with the South Pacific Islander that they're bringing in that he can only be tough because what have we learned about guys from the South Pacific Islands?
They're pretty good.
Most times they're rugby players too.
I mean, the thing that caught my eye the most, great draft by the 49ers. The thing that caught my eye the most is, they just stole draft picks from the Bears, really. I mean, there's kind of speculation, will the 49ers go quarterback, but I feel like they were smart enough. They got their guy at 3, and they also added picks, and they used a couple of those picks to get up and get Reuben Foster. So, if anything, they're really the winners of this division draft. I mean, I don't think they really can compete because you need a quarterback to compete.
Exactly,
and their defense isn't great now, but, I mean, adding Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster in the first round is a great start to a team that can be very good for years to come. I mean, just props to John Lynch. I mean, his first NFL draft, and he damn near killed it. I mean, just trading down one spot and picking up an extra third, fourth, and third next year just to take the same guy you're taking at 2. I mean, how is that not considered a win in that division?
Exactly, and I think to build off your point, Mike, when we were talking about the NFC West, I think a team that a lot of people think would be the face of this division currently, even if they haven't been the best in the years past compared to when they first got that Super Bowl, it's the Seattle Seahawks, and taking number 35 overall Malik McDowell, defensive tackle out of Michigan State. You have to like this pick a lot. You got Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill on the defensive line right now. This can only add more depth here, and I think this is a good pick. I think it's smart. And they were in kind of a similar situation with New England in this draft. They kind of could just work with what they had. They didn't have a first-round pick, and they were real flexible with it. They also picked up an offensive lineman, Ethan Pochik, from LSU. Real good caliber guy. I'm a big fan of SEC linemen on this show, as you obviously know. Charles Harris, shout out him. I called him getting drafted. But that's a whole nother story. Also, one guy, and it's funny that I brought him up on the show last week, cornerback Shaquille Griffin out of UCF. Seattle Seahawks pick him up with the number 90 overall pick, round 3. The reason I like this young man a lot was I talked about like his speed. I talked about his size, 6 foot with 32 3/8 inch arms. Tested 96.1 percentile athletically. Obviously, the combine's completely different. It's not padded. It's not on the field. It's not live action, as they would say, but it's still a pretty good indication that this kid's fast. He's got lengthiness, and he can bring a lot to the table. I wanted to ask you, Mike, though, out of the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams and the Niners in this entire division, who do you think had the worst draft in this entire?
The worst draft. I mean, I'm going to have to go with the Rams because, I mean, I feel like they definitely reached with some picks. Definitely the tight end they drafted. They definitely reached with them. You know, there's this thought that he can be the Jordan Reed, but I mean, there is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 3 tight ends that went before him, and really, I mean, it was a pretty good tight end draft class, but I don't think there are that many top 2 round tight ends. So I feel like they reached a little there. But I mean, I like some of the depth picks they had. I mean, Cooper Kupp was a very, very good pick in my opinion. I mean, Jared Goff is, I mean, still the jury's still out whether he's going to be the man or not. But I mean, you definitely needed to help him out. So a pick like Cooper Kupp definitely helped them out a lot. But I'll have to say the Rams of anybody. But I mean, hey, the jury's still out to see whether they're good or not. I mean, they still got a season perform. They still got a while to go. They didn't put on a Rams uniform yet or play. But you know, I like some of the depth they put in. But I just don't like the value they got with some picks. But I mean, if I had to, out of all their picks, their best pick was by far Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you, Mike. There, I think the Rams really, and I kind of expected a lot, especially them being the number 1 overall pick last year, taking Jared Goff. You're talking about Jared Goff going into his second year. What is he gonna be? Is he the future here in Los Angeles? Obviously, the second year, new phase franchise. The Rams being back here, I think it's interesting. You know, when we talk about the Rams' offensive core, I mean, you look at Tavon Austin, you look at running backs like Todd Gurley, you look at Woods on the wideout, you look at Farrah Cooper on the wideout. One position that really has been lacking in LA in the past couple of years is the tight end position. It's interesting with their first pick, number 44 overall, they selected Gerald Everett, tight end out of South Alabama. South Alabama actually has only been officially Division I for, I believe, the past 5 years. So it's still a new, renowned program, still building up. And I think it's interesting here. A lot of people have compared him to Jordan Reed, a very lengthy guy, 6'3", 239 pounds.
You take the top of the defense from the tight end position.
Exactly.
I mean, that's something they can use.
And, I mean, listen, he was a 4-year guy. He graduated, he got his degree. He had an injury. He had an ACL tear his freshman year of college, bounced back. And I think he fits in right now. He joins Tyler Higbee, a 4th-round pick last year, to give the Rams 2 young pass-catching tight ends. And I think this adds more depth. Obviously, Mark Hemingway can be developed. And there's still a lot of question marks here in Los Angeles. Like we said, there's a reason we're talking about them last, because we feel like they really didn't get the most out of this draft. But it's not like all hope is lost. Todd Gurley's still your running back, and Jared Goff is capable. I mean, he's a Cal Berkeley guy. We've seen Cal Berkeley guys can turn out well, cough, cough, Aaron Rodgers. So I think that this team has a future. It's just how they utilize it, and I don't know if I was too blown away by these draft picks this year.
All right, so we know the Seahawks are probably coming into the season's favorite to win the
I would think
respectfully so. But
and listen, we love to show Haas. We'd love to show you love to you right now, but right now it's just the Cardinals matching up with the Seahawks this year. There's a decline right now.
It's tough, but do you think the Cardinals or anybody else for that matter can compete with the Seahawks? Because in my opinion, I mean, I think the Cardinals got a lot better. I think they didn't win the draft, but they fill some needs. I mean, Buda Baker, Son Reddick, and their 4th-round steal, Dorian Johnson, who fell to the fourth round because speculation about a liver condition he had, but he had the green light, everything's all good, and he fell in. So I think they got some day 1 starters in Son Reddick, Buda Baker, and Dorian Johnson, and I think that's really going to help because you have Carson Palmer, who we know who Carson Palmer is. He's good, but the thing is he's old. So how much can he compete? With teams like that division, but. I think they did pretty solid, in filling up some defensive holes because really we knew the Cardinals last couple of years for their defense, and they really struggled last year. Like their defense was very bad, along with really receiving core problems. But I think they plugged up the defense. I would have liked them to maybe add a receiver because other than Larry Fitzgerald, I don't think they really have anybody. No. Honestly, but I think the Cardinals can compete. I just don't know if they will. But I really like the defensive additions they had because. They can have a really tough defense, man. Like it's something's cooking there.
And also, building off that point, last year Carson Palmer was one of the most pressurized quarterbacks in the NFL. I think adding a piece like Will Holden, offensive tackle from Vanderbilt, is very nice. I think Vanderbilt does a very good job of they haven't really been the most developed program in the past couple of years in the SEC. It's tough when you're competing with Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, all these teams, Florida, LSU, even Tennessee sometimes, but it's not like, I mean, shout out Tennessee, obviously. But I think it's interesting here, them picking up this guy. And like you said, Mike, you look at this team, you're not really blown away. And listen, Larry Fitzgerald's still the guy, but it's not like Larry Fitzgerald's going to be here forever. And I mean, Josh Brown was just okay last year.
Yeah, he took
very average.
Big step back.
Big step back. David Johnson's your guy. That's also something interesting. I thought when they drafted T.J. Logan, the running back at a UNC, that really caught our eyes, Mike, because we kind of looked at each other and we're like, listen, you have David Johnson. I don't really know what more else you need. I mean, we talked about David Johnson earlier on the show. We thought he was a top caliber guy in the NFL, top running back. And when I look at this wide receiver core, like you said, Mike, I don't really see much. And then we look back at the Arizona Cardinals draft. I don't see one single wide receiver in this draft. And it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they played up the holes on defense, offensive line, like I said, but I think they really didn't pay enough attention to skill position as much as I think they should have, really.
And the one wide receiver they did get, I forgot to be a little bit more specific to you. They got one wide receiver, but I would like to have seen more. The one they got was Chad Williams out of Grambling State, which we obviously know is D1AA. And listen, I have nothing against the D1AA. Carson Wentz is D1AA. Tony Romo was D1AA, right? Correct? He was Illinois State.
Illinois,
yeah. And then Jimmy Garoppolo was D1AA.
Yeah, same college as Tony Romo.
And it's crazy. So. And it's funny to me how they took him in the third round spot. Grambling's been kind of known for being a declining program economically. Obviously, there was that whole bit on them. Yeah. Was that 3 years ago? There was a lot of budget cuts in that program.
Yeah.
And to see the way they bounced back, getting a draft pick this year, got to feel good for the program. And listen, Chad Williams is 6 foot. He's 207 pounds.
Hey, who knows?
Ran at 4.4 at the combine. 34th overall pick. He's got to be something
Bruce
special.
Arians is a pretty good coach too. So
I have a lot of faith in Bruce Arians because, as we all know, and this goes without saying, if you don't know, you're about to get hit. Bruce Arians was once a coach here at the Temple University, so it was cool to me. Also, kind of reverse the point when Hassan got that call. I don't know if you guys saw this video. I got that sent in to me by a friend. I think about 3 days ago of Hassan getting drafted, and you could just kind of see the emotion that Bruce Arians has for. The passion he has for the players he brings in, and also just bringing players in, he has a connection with Hassan Reddick. And I think the whole Hassan Reddick pick, if the Cardinals don't take Hassan Reddick, I look at this draft completely different. I think this Hassan Reddick pick set the tone completely, drafting him 13th overall, like you said. Buda Baker, total steal.
I mean, that's a steal in the second round. I mean, they had Washington University had the best pass defense.
Oh, 100%.
In the nation,
100%.
best pass defense in the nation, and they just got their number one safety. So, I really like that. So.
And we saw Sidney Jones slip up to the Eagles. We saw King slip up, and then all of a sudden, here's Buda Baker. And he's available in the second round, and it's incredible to me.
I mean, it's a definitely good pick for the Cardinals, but I think it's safe to say the Seahawks, I mean, if... I have a really good chance of taking this division. I think they will take this division.
I think everything we've just said sums it all up. They won this draft, I think, entirely, maybe not just in this division, but almost all together. I think the Seahawks added a lot more spark, and I think that's all they need right now is just a bit of a spark in that city of Seattle where it rains so much.
Well, let's stop talking about this non-competitive division and get to a very, very competitive division in AFC West. So last year it was very competitive, and this year it's going to be even more competitive. And the draft class that really sticks out for me in that division, bar none, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Definitely, 100%. And I was talking to you before this, Mike. I think the biggest problem with the Los Angeles Chargers and why they finished 5-11 last year, Phillip Rivers had absolutely zero protection whatsoever. And I mean, if you look at this team altogether, it's safe to say that at this point, Phillip Rivers in his career, it's hard to tell what he really stands for and what his legacy will be. I mean, he's 35 years old, 33 touchdowns in the season last year, over 4,300 yards. He had an 87.9 passer rating. And listen, a lot of people don't like to give Phillip Rivers a lot of credit, but when you put a good offensive line behind this guy, I think he's pro caliber, and I think that's exactly what the Chargers did this draft.
Oh, definitely. I'm fully convinced. I still think he's the best quarterback in AFC West. I mean, you have Derek Carr still stepping up, but I think Phillip Rivers, going into this year, still really is because he's a very talented.
He is.
Very talented. I mean, they won 5-11, and how many fourth quarter leads did they blow?
A lot.
A lot of
fourth quarter leads. I remember you can't put him on that. Phillip Rivers is on offense, not defense.
Exactly. I remember specifically watching the Atlanta Falcons game. I believe they're up by a couple possessions, and it's just the defense. I mean, we know how explosive the Falcons are, and they're very good, but that defense just didn't do anything. But I mean, you could see that Phillip Rivers is not a huge, huge with the move to L.A.
Obviously not.
I think, but I mean, I think it's a great consoling present, that they got Mike Williams and 2 day one starters on the offensive line for him. One of them being Forrest Lamp, who they got in the second round, who in my opinion was definitely had the chance to be number 1 lineman in there. So I really like what the Chargers came with, because Phillip Rivers only has really, I think, 2 more Pro Bowl level productive years left, and I think with Mike Williams, if Keenan Allen some way in hell find a way to stay healthy,
yeah.
I mean, this could be something. I mean, Hunter Henry last year, the tight end. I mean, he showed some promise.
Unbelievable.
Melvin Gordon took a huge step up last year. Huge step up.
Turned it up last year.
I mean, he turned it up big time. So I mean, that offense is dangerous.
Derek Watt stepped it up. I'm just kidding.
I mean, yeah, big step up. I mean, like this Chargers team, they're kind of scary. I mean, they could win this division. I think it all depends on the Raiders' health. They definitely could though, because this offense is insane. And let's not forget their defensive additions.
Yeah.
I mean, insane. I mean, Desmond King. I mean, I talked about him a couple shows ago. I mean, I liked him out of Iowa when they were consideration for the playoffs 2 years ago. He was the best player on that team, no questions asked, or at least that defense. I mean, so he's a very good pick, and the fact that he fell all the way down there is just because he had a lack of production last year. I think they really got a talented pick to pair Jason Verrett and everybody. So I really think they made out here.
And they totally 100% made out, Mike. I think the biggest one that you were suntanning on the beach. Life's a beach. Mike's just playing in the sand.
It's fun, man.
And he was suntanned down on the beach, and I sent him this text. Now here we are in the 4th round towards the end, and I'm like, Mike, you do realize Desmond King's still available? Sure enough, who picks him up? The L.A. Chargers, and also right before that, they pick up Rashawn Jenkins, safety out of the Miami. And listen, you just talked about Jason Verrett.
Athlete, man.
You just talked about Jason Verrett. I'm a big Jason Verrett guy. I really like Jason Verrett. I think he's the real deal right now. And like you said, Mike, offensively, they're pretty tuned. If Keenan Allen stays healthy, Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry,
I like that Russell Okung signing too, because Phillip Rivers couldn't stay up last year. I mean, they stacked their line kind of this year, so they're a very scary team. They're a team that can really flip their record around and go 11-5.
And Travis Benjamin too, like you said, Mike. And you're adding all these pieces on offense. I mean, you bring in Mike Williams now, and you just talk about this team. I mean, it's not like an untalented team. Melvin Ingram's very, very solid off the edge. You got Denzel Perryman on defense. Obviously, Manti Te'o is no longer here in San Diego anymore. Brandon Flowers leaving. I think also that was a big reason why they wanted to address secondary was Brandon Flowers was leaving. You still got Corey Liuget, and, I mean, you still got Joey Bosa. Let's not forget the fact that this time last year, Joey Bosa was holding out on a contract with at the time, San Diego Chargers, and he completely took it over this year, completely dominated.
I mean, he's good. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
He's very good. 10.5 averaging. He was 10.5 sacks on the season. I mean, there's more tackles for loss. It was ridiculous. It was like 7, which was the most on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy held out for the entire preseason, comes in, leads the team in tackles for loss. Huge guy, huge pressure edge, and like you said, Mike, you can only get better. I mean, you add Jerry Atachu, Jarrell Stuckey, Jason Verrett,
Russell Okung signing.
This is unbelievable. And
I mean, it's very good, and I think they definitely propelled themselves into a potential playoff team.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think let's shift the combo right now to another. What was it? The division winner last year, the Kansas City Chiefs, and sort of lucked out in winning the division. I mean, with Derek Carr breaking his leg and all, then the Raiders eventually having to go to their second string quarterback. So I think they won the division because of that, but they're still going to make the playoffs, and they made a jump. So remember how shocking that was? We were there when they traded up to the 10th pick. That was crazy, and to take Patrick Mahomes.
Of all people,
Patrick Mahomes.
I mean,
we were thinking Deshaun Watson, and honestly, Deshaun Watson definitely made sense in my opinion. But Andy Reid's going with the raw prospect. I mean, Alex Smith does have another 2 to 3 years left, and I mean, Andy Reid knows how to coach, and he can definitely develop Patrick Mahomes. Really.
Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes isn't really. I don't think it's a bad pick. I just thought it was a little shocking. Obviously, they move up and they draft Patrick Mahomes. Like
17 spots too, so he has to be the man in 3 years.
Like you said, Mike. I mean, like at this point, it's Andy Reid, and we've seen what Andy Reid's capable of. He's been to the Super Bowl. He's coached winning teams. He's made the playoffs many a times in his career.
A lot of times in his career, and like it's a great system for him. I think he's going to fit quite well here. I think he when we were watching him, and listen, this is I guess my only concern when we talk about the division he played in the Big 12. It's impossible to name a caliber defense right now in the Big 12. Oh, he was. No, I like. they said it best on ESPN the other day, but as Sandlot offense, Texas Tech was running. I mean, it was true. It was just wide receivers pretty much run whatever route you want and make sure the offensive line is just blocking a guy and hey, just let him throw down the field because he has arm strength. He has he has the smartness to see which receiver's open or not. I mean, every quarterback has to, but they really didn't have any structure to their offense. And Andy Reid's mainly about structure to his offense. For a good part of the game, sometimes it can get a little wild, but I think you have Andy Reid in there teaching you. I don't think he could have fell to a better spot, in my opinion, than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
I mean, you saw how much offense is going up on the board, so the Chiefs just saw it and says, there's a lot of offense going on the board, so we might as well just go up there and get a quarterback. I mean, they have a playoff team. Look at their team. Where do they really have any needs besides running back? And they addressed that later with Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt at Toledo, yeah.
I mean, he gashed Temple in the bowl game a couple years ago. The man's for real. I think he's a day one starter. I don't think there's any questions asked. I mean, Spencer Ware can definitely spell him in, or they can go running back by committee with that. I like that, but I mean, honestly, they really don't have that much need. So they could afford trading away a couple picks and going up to get him and see what happens in 4 years. They definitely could afford that, and hey, they did it.
And like you said, Mike, at this point, I mean, Alex Smith, he's got 157 touchdowns on his career, 91 interceptions, over 27,000 career yards, made the playoffs, been from the Niners to the Chiefs. But what does he have to show for it? I mean, at this point in your career, we see this every year. If he plays the Patriots, he's going to be out. If he plays any team in the second round, he's going to be out. And I don't mean to, bash Alex Smith like that,
but it's true at the end of the day.
Tell me I'm wrong. And listen, he got close one year when the Niners played the New York Giants in that NFC Championship game. He did. And he almost got him to a Super Bowl. And I think it's still heartbreaking for Alex Smith. But at this point, like you said, Mike, he's got 3 more years. And the Kansas City Chiefs saw Patrick Mahomes, a father who played Major League Baseball, has one of the best per developments out of any quarterback in this draft. Pro caliber arm. This guy can gun it.
He can gun it,
dude. Oh my God. I was watching his highlight tape. This guy can throw it far and fast. So I think if you develop him correctly, like you said, Andy Reid's your coach. So I don't really got much else to say on the matter if Andy Reid's going to be your head coach and you got a young, talented guy. But I think one guy I really just wanted to mention was Jehu Chesson, wide receiver to Michigan. And Michigan completely dominated this draft.
Oh, what they have 11 players?
I think 11. Yeah, it was 11. And I think coming up right behind them was Alabama, Florida. I think Tennessee had 8. Mm-hmm. Temple, how many Temple have? We had, 3?
We had 3, but we had six undrafted free agents.
6.
So if we include undrafted free agents, we're up there.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll take it. Man.
It's definitely up there, but that's a whole nother part. I think it was interesting, though, taking this guy here. We talked a lot about Michigan players and the pro development that they have. A guy running 4.47 at the combine, 500 yards. 2 touchdowns on the season. It's not too glorious on the touchdown stats, but I guess that's why he was drafted later.
Yeah, but Michigan really didn't have a quarterback.
He did, and honestly, you look at him, he's a senior. I mean, like he said, 6'2", 204, and I think that's good that he's a senior. It means he played 4 years in college. At this point, there's no other time he can be ready. I mean, you have to be ready. That's your choice. If you want to go to the NFL, you got to be ready right now. So I think he'll be ready. I think he can get deep. I think he's great on the slant route. I think he's a good short guy. I think he's a great tool for this team, for Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, Chiefs fans can't be mad because if you look at Andy Reid's time in Philly, I mean, he was a really good drafter.
Yeah.
I mean, all those teams we had in Philly when Andy Reid was the coach was because of how good of a drafter he was. And you want to know why the Chip Kelly era wasn't good in Philly because he got rid of all the Andy Reid drafted players. Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy. I mean, he can draft cornerbacks. I mean, he drafted Marcus Peters for the Chiefs. So he's a good drafter. So, I mean, you can look at the names and say, oh, this is very underwhelming. But at the end of the day, it's Andy Reid. The dude knows how to evaluate talent. So if I was a Chiefs fan, I'm sitting here looking at this draft. Well, yes, I'm a little confused that we trade up 17 spots for a very raw quarterback that's not going to start in the next 3 years. I can trust Andy Reid. You got to put your faith in him if you're a Chiefs fan, and rightfully so. I mean, he deserves it. He definitely does.
And like you said, Mike, there's really nothing more to be addressed right now. Macklin, Conley, Kelsey, Spencer Ware. I think Spencer Ware's great. Yeah. I think he's
they
solid.
Can be really good.
I think he's solid 2-3 down back. Offensive line's fantastic. Fisher, Fulton, Moore, Schwartz on the line. And just to add on to your point, Mike, really not much more to be said about the defense, obviously. I mean, we looked at what they did last year. It was tough to see how it ended, but Derrick Johnson, Eric Berry, Steven Nelson, Ron Parker, Marcus Peters, can't forget about that, Tom Bahali, D Ford.
Yeah, they're a really good team. I mean, that defense is stacked. But,
yeah, 100% stacked.
I mean, that defense is stacked just like the Broncos, and let's talk about the Broncos a little
100%.
bit. And,
I would love to talk about the Broncos.
Let's definitely talk about the Broncos. They won the Super Bowl Then the next year, what did they go 10-6 if I'm not mistaken?
Around that, yeah.
Yeah, 10-6, and they missed the playoffs just because they
9-7. They finished 9-7.
Yeah,
third in
9-7.
the AFC West,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I mean, they're a good team. They don't have a quarterback.
No, they don't.
They don't have a quarterback, and they didn't address that, but they did address it with Mr. Irrelevant and Chad Kelly.
At the very last pick.
The very last pick. I love how Mr. Irrelevant's either a kicker or a quarterback every year. I just love it.
Yeah, and it's funny, Mike, because I don't know if do you watch sports science, Michael?
Oh, heck yeah, I watch sports science.
I know he watches sports science. I don't mean to ask so many dumb questions today, folks. We should probably legitimize ourselves a little bit more. I'll start by asking the next most important question here. Did you watch Chad Kelly on sports science?
I actually didn't. I actually missed that.
Okay, so there was a bit on sports science. He had Chad Kelly throw from 10 yards out, 20 yards out, 30 yards out. Hits 10 out of 10, 10 yards out. Hits 10 out of 10, 20 yards out. And then he has a moving target on the go with two barriers. So it was kind of cool, honestly. Like, the show was set up with these two barriers. And he had to throw it through this tight window. I'd say about a foot window. And he had to hit the target on the go. Hits 10 out of 10 from the 10 to 20 yards. Hits 8 out of 10 on that target. So immediately what stood out to me, and when I looked more into this guy and what he did at Ole Miss in his career at Ole Miss, what stood out to me was not only arm strength but accuracy. And I'm all about accuracy in the NFL. I'm a firm believer that you can have a great arm, you can throw it far, but if you can't get the ball on the numbers, if you can't get the ball there, this is the NFL. Secondary's fast, they're good, and we saw that
especially
last year.
Especially in AFC West.
We saw that last year. Jared Goff, a quarterback that comes right off my head, like just getting the ball there faster. Blake Bortles even still struggles with it all these years later. It's part of
it's also Blake Bortles.
It is Blake Bortles.
It's also the Jaguars.
It's interesting because he started his career at Clemson, obviously transferred to Ole Miss to get more NFL looks. And I look at this guy, I look at 31 touchdowns in 2015, I look at 19 touchdowns last year. I think that's probably what it speaks for itself why he was drafted so late, but it's not like it was a huge decline.
I mean, he's Mr. Irrelevant. You can't go wrong with just throwing the Mr. Irrelevant pick at a quarterback, especially on Chad Kelly. I mean, he has talent. I mean, he definitely be developed, and if he has John Elway whispering in his ear every day, who knows? I mean, but they still have a first round pick from last year, Paxton Lynch. I mean, if I'm a Broncos fan, I don't care about Chad Kelly. Paxton Lynch has to be the guy. You spent a first round pick on him last year, so I mean. Yes, you do draft a quarterback. It's Mr. Irrelevant, but I mean, if everything works out in a perfect world for the Broncos, Paxton Lynch is your starter and Chad Kelly's your backup. Because you spent a first round pick on this guy. He has to be the man. Yeah. So I mean, while Chad Kelly does have a lot of upside, it's still Paxton Lynch's team, and he has to take control of that team at the end of the day. And they had a lot of offensive line struggles, and I kind of like how they addressed that in the first round with Garrett Bowles. You see him bring out his kid. Bring out his
fantastic.
kid. That was actually pretty cool.
Well, he must have been, 7-8 months? Around that.
He was definitely
he
young
graduated
guy.
as a senior, so Garrett Bowles is probably 23 years old right now.
Yeah, he's probably
right around there.
Yeah.
I thought it's fantastic.
I thought it was pretty cool. He wrapped him in the jersey. He picked him up. That was pretty cool. But hey, he looked nice out there. But wait until you get in between the lines with him. Man, mean.
Utah lineman, man. He's raw. Mountain West. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like I like that pick because they definitely need to solidify the offensive line, help it out to give a chance for Paxton Lynch or even Trevor Siemian. I don't know why he's still in the conversation. A chance.
Yeah,
so,
it was funny. I was just going to bring that up. Would you chalk Trevor Siemian at this point? You firmly believe Paxton Lynch is the dude when it comes
I don't think
year?
Paxton Lynch is a dude, but he has to be. But I don't think he is yet. I mean, Trevor Siemian's okay, but how far does having an okay quarterback get you in this league? We saw last year.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like the year where they had Peyton Manning and won a Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, you had Peyton Manning, but that wasn't a Peyton Manning year. You just had Von Miller with one of the best defensive seasons of all time and stuff. So. They're definitely a defensive reliant team, but I like some of the offensive picks they have. What about Jake Butt in the 5th round?
I think this is by
far. That's
a
steal. I think that's a top 5 steal in the draft.
I think there's no better word to put this right now, Mike. That is the steal of the draft, and I think there's a very obviously self-explanatory reason for why. Obviously, with the ACL injury in the Orange Bowl last year, there's a reason why he slipped back this far into the draft. But, Mike, I can't help but agree with you more. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 546 yards, 46 receptions for a tight end. Kind of a little reminiscent of Rob Gronkowski when I watch him out there. And I think he played under Jim Harbaugh. Whether you like or hate the guy, Jim Harbaugh is a fantastic coach.
He is, yeah.
And I think this adds a lot.
Because they needed a tight end.
They did need a tight end. I mean, you look at the Broncos, and when they won that Super Bowl, when they beat New England in that AFC Championship, we talked about just how great that receiving core was. And since then, you really just can't really say the same. I mean, Demaryius Thomas has been pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, they saw the receivers. They just don't have that middle of the field threat.
And they don't. They don't. Right now, I mean, we're looking at their tight ends right now. Who's first up on the depth chart? I mean, it's Virgil Green out of San Bernardino, California, Nevada. He was a draft pick Well, it's his 7th season, so I guess what was a draft pick back in 2010. 28 years old. I mean, last season he had 237 yards, 1 touchdown, 616 on his career. So I mean, big majority of his career yards were from last season. But I can't. We could get back to the central point, Mike. I really can't agree with you more here with taking Jake Butt because he's a tight end, but he kind of acts like that.
I mean,
like
in
a
the 5th
lineman at the
round, I
same
mean,
time.
if he didn't get hurt last year, I mean,
I think he's second if he doesn't get hurt. Maybe
exactly,
first.
exactly. He's late first, definitely in the 2nd round. There's no way he's falling to day 3 if he doesn't get hurt. So, honestly, it's it's a 5th round pick. So if he doesn't pan out because he can't get healthy, I mean, it's a 5th round pick.
Right.
So I mean, at the day you're fine, but I mean, it's a risk when he's injured. But let's talk about another risk in his division, Garen Conley.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know and heard what happened to him, but I mean, I guess they got faith in him that everything's gonna be dropped and everything's all cool.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like.
It's an Oakland Raiders pick though. It's an outdated. You can just tell it's an Oakland Raiders.
It's an Oakland Raiders pick, and it's funny because they take him 24th overall, and it's been made very clear that if these charges come out and they aren't true, that they have to release him immediately. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out in the next coming weeks with the further developments on the whole rape allegation.
Yeah, I heard there was an NFL team, one out of the 32, that was gonna put him on a lie detector test. I'm not thoroughly positive as the Raiders, but I'm pretty sure it's the Raiders if they took him in the 1st round. They had him go through a lie detector test, go through the whole night, I guess go through the whole situation, see if he's lying, and hey, I'm assuming he got passed. He just got drafted in the 1st round. So, I mean, I think he's a talent. I mean, there was a lot of 1st round grade cornerbacks. They definitely took one. It's just a matter if all these things get dropped. But I mean, they definitely need a lot of defensive help. We know all about their offense, run DMC, all that. They just got Marshawn Lynch. They got Skittles in the building.
Yeah.
Money's gonna be raining from everywhere. But what about
a lot more Skittles? Expect a lot of Skittles this year at the Oakland Coliseum.
A lot. They better be there. They better be there. But What
Tropical
about
ones.
this UConn guy? Another AAC guy.
It's funny. I'm about to bring him up. He's Obi.
Obi Melifonen.
Yeah, Melifonen. No,
Yeah,
Oli
Melifonen. Yeah.
Obi Melifonen. It's funny you bring him up because we like the name Obi here at Temple University.
Oh,
or do we? I'm kidding. We love
do
you,
we?
Obi. But
yeah, we do love you.
We do love you.
You know
Obi.
you're a listener.
We know you are. You and I got here. It's funny, Mike. You brought him up because last season he had 118 tackles. See, the thing that stood up to me about this guy is when you think of a safety or a cornerback, you kind of think of a guy who can break up plays. And you look for a guy who's going to get you tackles. He's the last line of defense. That's what a safety functions as in the NFL. Anyone who watches football knows that's what a safety's meant for. And one thing that I think stood out to me 100% was 118 tackles on the season last year. And that was just last year. I mean, 118 tackles. The kid's legit. And
at this day and age at a safety, especially in college, when majority of
I'd like to
safeties
say
in college are
was-
just dropping 30 yards back from the line of scrimmage, that number of tackles is insane.
And it's crazy that I'm going to say this in the same sense. I'd like to say it was Temple versus Obi when Philip Walker was out there under center.
It pretty much was Temple versus Obi. There wasn't anybody
Temple
else on
versus
that
Obi.
defense.
I think he was the only player on the UConn defensive side last year, and it still blows my mind that UConn has one defensive player. Congratulations, UConn.
Yeah, UConn always wins in everything but basketball.
Exactly. All football.
Yeah, no, they don't. So, out of this whole division, who's your winner?
By far, the LA Chargers. I'm about to say San Diego
I would have
Chargers.
to agree with you.
I would say by far the LA Chargers. I look at the Raiders, and I think actually one more point. I'm going to add this on just at the very end. I think their best pick in this draft, besides Obi and Gary, is by far Eddie Vanderdoes, defensive tackle out of UCLA.
He's got the injury history, but hey, he can do something good. They
and
need
I
an
have
interior.
I have to give him a shout out. One of my good friends, Eli Grunwald, went to high school with him, so I have to give a shout out to him, obviously.
Great.
And I have to obviously commemorate him for what he did at UCLA. I think it's great. He's playing in Oakland. He was averaging 2.5 sacks on the season last year. He had around 30 tackles, and that was just on his one season. He's leaving as a junior. 6'3", 305 pounds. The kid's huge. And I think
fits the scheme.
I think this is great. I think if I had to rank it right now, I'm putting the LA Chargers at first. And then, honestly, tough, honestly. I'm trying to think of this
They
on
all
the spot.
had mediocre mediocre drafts class besides the Chargers.
Besides the Chargers. Because if you look at the Broncos, you can brag a lot about the tight end. If you look at the Chiefs, you can brag a lot about the wide receiver and the added depth. If you look at the Raiders, you can argue about their overall defensive depth that they added. I think the LA Chargers are the big winners. I think overall, I don't know. I didn't really see the Broncos do too much in this year's draft.
I think if Derek Carr can stay healthy, there's no reason the Raiders don't win his division. But
Again, I think they win again, yeah.
I honestly think, in my opinion, that the Broncos won't make the playoffs again because I don't know how to put it. I just don't feel comfortable with him. Who's their quarterback? You know what I'm saying? And I know there really wasn't a big quarterback class, but they really didn't make any insane upgrades in my opinion, and they lost Wade Phillips as their defensive coordinator. So I just don't see them making the playoffs again. I honestly think the Chiefs and the Chargers are going to take up them 2 wildcard spots in AFC, in my opinion.
So you think with this new move to Carson, California, and playing in the Home Depot Center, in the rear view, the Qualcomm Stadium's down in the rear view, do you believe the LA Chargers can finish second in this division this year behind the Oakland Raiders?
If not second, definitely third and make a wild card, because I think Phillip Rivers is just going to walk in, day one of padded practice and be like, oh my God, I finally have people to throw to, because Keenan Allen's not going to pop his knee out, after week 1, so I'll finally have people to throw to besides Melvin Gordon.
I'm sure he's a happy man. He's a very happy man.
I mean, he's not happy he moved to LA, but he's got to be happy around the firepower with him in this offense, and they made some defensive improvements. So I think the Chargers are by far the most improved team in this division. I think they can squeeze into the playoffs and flip that record, maybe go in 11-5 or 10-6, and I think they can definitely squeeze up to 6 wildcard spots.
I think Dean Spanos needs that right now. I think the patience has outgrown him. I think it was obvious when they moved to LA.
And it'll be good for them too. As soon as they move to LA, have a playoff run. I mean, it'll be good for them.
I think it's the year of the Chargers in the AFC West. We'll see though. Los Angeles Chargers making big moves all together. Big moves going on around the NFL. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back after this. Welcome back, Sports World. We are here on the show today. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Let me emphasize that. Beautiful last day of classes here at Temple University on Monday. And guess what? We got more football for you, as we do. We love
got
football.
A lot more football.
We love football on the show, and we're going to get you right back where you want to be, folks. Here we are right back here at the start of NFL Lane. And, Mike, we're about to take you down NFL Lane. We're about to break it down for you, Mike, and I'd like you to start this one off. Mike, I know you got a lot to say about this next division.
All right, so, we're cruising down the highway right now. We're just going to stroll through Houston because they just killed this draft.
100%.
FYI.
100%.
I mean...
Howdy, y'all!
Howdy's the word. Houston Texans. So... They traded up to get Deshaun Watson, and they played the board right. I mean, in a perfect world, they would love if Deshaun Watson maybe fell, another 5 spots. But the way offense was flying off the board unexpectedly, they had to make a move, and it was inevitable. I mean, the Browns had 2 first-round picks. In what world are the Browns going to take 2 top 15 picks and actually draft good players with them? No world. So, they're going to trade one of them. So, I mean, the Texans took advantage of that, went up to 12, got Deshaun Watson, and, hey, I like it. You look at that defense, where they were a top 2 defense in the league. I'm pretty sure they're number 1 for most part of the year until the Patriots stole the number 1 defensive spot. So, I mean, the Texans really don't have a lot of holes. So, Deshaun Watson fills the biggest one in quarterback, and he's a competitor. He played a lot of games. He won a lot of games. He won a national championship. He played in 2 national championships, and he's a smart dude. I mean, I feel like if you're the Texans, he fits your team need, and 2, I honestly think he was the best. Like, if you need a quarterback now, Deshaun Watson's your guy if you're gonna take one, and I think the Texans did a good job of going to get him.
Yeah, and I agree, Mike. I think 100% the Texans definitely win this division in the draft. I think by a long shot too. I look at this draft and I love almost every single pick, but one pick I really love, and I know our good friend Ryan Noaker, shout out Noaker, holding it down back at the room. I know he would love this one too. Dante Foreman out of Texas, the running back, junior.
He's real. He's
real.
I want the Eagles to get him for a 4-down back. I think he's going to be a 4-down back in his league, and I think if you pair him with Lamar Miller, you just have a backfield on steroids. Really.
And this is a strong, powerful running back caliber team now, man. You got Lamar Miller, Dante Foreman. Guy's 233 pounds, 6 feet tall, ran a 4.42 at the combine, 15 touchdowns in his career at Texas, over 2,000 rushing yards on 323 attempts. The kid can run, and honestly, I think if he wasn't there, Texas may have gone winless last year because this guy was half the offense, and I think it's appropriate. I think it's so appropriate. I mean, it's the Houston Texans drafting a guy from Austin, bringing in a Longhorn to the team, and I also think it's extremely appropriate that they took Zach Cunningham, inside linebacker out of Vanderbilt.
Talking about value, I mean...
Very big value.
Picking up him, yeah. I mean, they need a linebacker because Brian Cushion gets hurt every other game. So I mean, they definitely need some linebacker depth. And not only do they get depth, they get a potential starter and possibly the best player on that defense in a couple years, other than J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney and Zach Cunningham. I mean, he's athletic, he's quick, he can translate very well to the NFL, and I think that's a good pick because they have a good defense. So just adding even more depth and a potential starter in a year or two because Brian Cushing can't stay healthy. I really like that value pick. I think they really made out here. I don't think there's any questions how they filled all their needs and they got value. I mean, their first 2 days. I mean, if I'm a Houston Texans fan and you tell me after day 2 you're gonna have Deshaun Watson, Zach Cunningham, and Dante Foreman on your team, I'm like, let's start planning the parade now. I mean, let's
exactly.
get it going. And I mean, and in the division that's really competitive, but it's more of a 7-9 to 9-7 competitive. I think they really made out that they're gonna add another couple wins on their roster. I think. I mean, even if Deshaun Watson doesn't start the first couple of games, which I'm confused why they still want to stick with Tom Savage. I mean, hey, it's Tom Savage at the end of the day, but I think Deshaun Watson will eventually start and really help that team get a couple more wins, and it's a good pick because that man doesn't get nervous.
And they're playing in a division right now where your most competitive team all around at the end of the day is the Indianapolis Colts with Andrew Luck, as Blake Bortles and Marcus Mariota. Even with Blake Bortles so far into his, not would say far, but kind of like somewhat deep into his career in Jacksonville, he still really hasn't developed it. We haven't really seen a lot out of the Central Florida kid, and I think this is interesting. Like you said, Mike, the Texans are prone and they are ready and they can take over this division because I firmly believe while the Colts are on the decline, Houston is going up right now. And like you said, Mike, this defense, Covington, Jadeveon Clowney, Brian Cushing, J.J. Watt,
Go on and on.
and then one guy you add, and I don't even know why he was even still available. I think this was just absolutely they just robbed. If the AFC South was an old lady with a purse, and the Houston Texans were a burglar, that's how this scenario would work out.
Yeah, that's pretty much the rules that everyone's playing.
They rob a vulnerable division right now, and we'll get to the Jaguars here in a little bit. The Jaguars built up, but they rob a very vulnerable division right now, and I think it's so appropriate you take a Deshaun Watson because I'm sure as heck telling you Tom Savage and Brandon Weeden are not the answer in Houston, and I think adding a guy like Carlos Watkins, defensive tackle out of Clemson, and that's who I meant to bring up earlier, adding him so late into the draft, just stealing him up. I mean, we talk about Fuller, too, the safety out of Baylor, and this is a great one, too, because you just lose A.J. Boyer to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they address these needs in the secondary. They bring in a guy like him. I think he's very well developed. I also really like Tristan Dekout, the cornerback out of Oregon State. I also love Julian Davenport, not too far from me, out of Bucknell, an offensive tackle. I think this is a very, very solid pick. Altogether, when I look at this draft, I like these picks a lot, and I'd like to give a shout-out to Sarah Barship, if you're somehow listening, my former camp counselor. She's a beat reporter for the Houston Texans for ESPN. I'm sure she has a lot to say on this, too. 6'6", 3'4" guy, 318 pounds, another big guy, Julian Davenport. Like him a lot. Ran a very solid, got for a 40-yard dash for an offensive tackle, 5'4", pretty solid. And they snagged him up in the 4th round, too. And then they get Carlos Watkins out of Clemson, a guy who's played in 2 national championships, has played against Alabama. I just think they just stole it. And a lot of people would say the Jaguars, but when I look at this all together with addressing needs, adding overall depth, adding overall talent, adding the right guys at the right time, this to me is the Houston Texans.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And speaking of the old lady always getting beat up every year, I mean, let's just transition right into the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, that was seamless enough, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm sitting here as a Jaguars fan, I'm like, wow, our offense is very high-powered, but at the end of the day, we have Blake Bortles as our quarterback, so where do we go from here?
And it's funny, Mike, I got to ask you, when we were at that draft, I did think at one point the Jaguars would make a pursuit at perhaps Patrick Mahomes, perhaps Chad Kelly, perhaps Stephen Davis-Webb out of Cal Berkeley.
Perhaps anybody, honestly.
Perhaps anyone. And when I look at this draft, I see nothing of the sort. I see Leonard Fournette, who gets hurt a lot.
I see offensive talent, though.
I do.
I mean, you remember me saying how, if you take D.D. Westbrook, and you get a good value for him, you win the draft. They got him in day 3. And honestly, I love that pick.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he has these off-the-field concerns, but here's how I view. I don't care about off-the-field concerns. You want to know why? Because the only thing that matters is how he plays, in that 52-yard wide field. I mean, whatever he does outside, that's his own business. Yes, he needs to fix it up because he's going to be an NFL player now. He needs to be professional. I understand that, and I understand the concerns. But the fact that he falls all the way into day 3 of the draft just because his attitude might not be there, when his talent sure as hell is there. I mean, that boy's talent's insane. You throw him in a slot with Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. You have Julius Thomas, a tight end. You have Leonard Fournette just running over everybody and their grandma, and you have T.Y. Yeldon just going on swing routes and wheel routes, and just hopefully Blake Bortles can take a step up this year and be the third overall pick that he is. I think this offense can take an insane step up because they've been focusing on defense the last couple of years with offense sprinkled in, but they sprinkled in a lot of offense this year, and it's smelling pretty good what they're cooking up in Jacksonville.
And I think one of the most interesting characteristics that sticks out about the guy is he's only 170 pounds, he's 5'11", and he's just incredible. I mean, so light on his feet. Like you said, Mike, he's really reminiscent of a Deshaun Jackson, a deep ball guy, quick, can return kickoffs, can return punts, can get deep. I mean, when you watch his highlight tapes, half these throws are not even that great, but he's turning them out 35, 40
Yeah, because he's just so wide open because he's just running by everybody.
Because he's just storming by. He doesn't even need to put on a great move because he's so quick.
He's just so fast. I mean, I don't understand how he falls at day 3, in my opinion. And the Jaguars are really smart for snagging him up.
I mean, the stats add up, 17 touchdowns, like career for 1,524 yards. It's all right there. I mean, and listen, Mike, like, there's all this concern, and it's funny, we brought up Gary and Connolly earlier, and Joe Mixon, too, on, even the Bengals drafting him with the running back end. There was a big baggage with a lot of these players, and it's kind of hurtful to see that when you see a guy like Dede Westbrook, who was a Heisman candidate, was so valued going into this draft, and just to see how these off-field issues kind of pushed him back. But at the same time, and like you said, Mike, if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, when you look at this defense and you look at this offense, and you really sit down and you talk to yourself about, all right, what more does this team need to not go 3-13 and finish 4th in the AFC South? I don't really see much. It's just all the fact of the matter was that I don't really see how Blake Bortles is going to be your guy here in the future in Jacksonville. And like I said, Mike, and I'm going to further emphasize it. I was upset that they drafted DeJuan Smoot, defensive end out of Illinois, and did not utilize that pick to draft maybe a quarterback like Nate Peterman or someone they could develop out of Pittsburgh.
Well, here's a positive way of looking at it. I mean, these last couple of years, Blake Bortles finished the year off strong a couple of years back with Allen Robinson, putting up career numbers and stuff. But really, after this year, you will know for a fact or not if Blake Bortles is your guy. Because you're looking back last year, he got sacked a lot. He didn't have a running game. The wide receivers took a step back. I mean, it really wasn't all going as planned in Jacksonville because we're all saying, oh, they're going to take a big step up. But after this year, I think even like 3 or 4 games in, you will know for a fact that Blake Bortles is your guy or not. So you can look at it that way. You will have your answer halfway through the season, whether he is your guy or whether or not. You won't. The good thing is they're definitely not a Super Bowl contender, especially in AFC. I mean, you still got the Patriots. We can go on and on with all these names, and the Texans just won this draft and everything. You will have your answer this year. At least as a Jaguars fan, I think after even their bye week, I forget exactly what week their bye week is. You will have your answer. So that is definitely one way of looking at it because you stacked up the team, and if Blake Bortles isn't the guy, you get a quarterback next year or sign someone, and guess what? They have a lot of room to grow because they just made all these offensive picks. So I think if Blake Bortles isn't the guy, you still have a good situation for the next guy who steps up. He's going to be in a good situation to be in.
And I agree, Mike. I think, like you said, building off the point, listen, I'm not really a big Blake Bortles believer, but I think this is the year because, like you said, Mike, you just added all these pieces. Allen Hurns on offense, Julius Thomas departing at the tight end position was a big loser, but you also have to think of the fact that you have Allen Robinson, a guy who's very, very talented. You just drafted Dede Westbrook. Hopefully everything works out, the off-season issues. A lot of people would not hope the best, but I would only hope the best for these guys. This is all they've worked for their entire life. Hopefully this sorts out. Hopefully he gets his act together and he can show why he should have been first round and not in this round.
Yeah, and hopefully Jacksonville can get something nice for once, with a good football team.
And I think it was interesting that Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle at Alabama, was probably my favorite pick. I would see a lot of people
underrated pick.
Very underrated, very underrated. What we learned about Alabama players in the NFL, they usually develop quite well. And I like the guy's size. Once again, I'm all about big guys who can really get off the edge. And if you're big and you get off that edge and you can block, I mean, it only makes it easier for Blake Bortles and only gives him more time to prove why he's had all this time to develop and why this is the time now for Blake Bortles to really capitalize. One concern I have is Leonard Fournette in the first round with the injuries, and I don't know how you feel about that.
Especially 4th overall. I mean, Zeke was taken 4th overall last year, so, we saw the impact he made.
A lot of shoes to fill.
So you are going to see, after every single week, every single carry Leonard Fournette, you are going to see direct comparisons between him and Ezekiel Elliott.
We'll see plenty.
We're going to see plenty. So I mean, a lot of question marks in Jacksonville, but
But we're the first time we're not Sports Center, so we won't talk about that a lot.
we won't talk about it too much, but we'll go with a team that has a little bit more answers, and definitely the Titans.
Yeah.
I think they have a lot more answers, and I honestly think they're the second best team in this division. While like I'm not a huge Titans guy, I really didn't think they were going to be good last year. They went 9-7. It really wasn't for an injury or two. I think they could definitely squeeze and make the playoffs, even win that division. I mean. They're a good team. Marcus Mariota, I think he's the real deal. He transformed well right into the NFL, and I think with these picks, they made some upgrades. I really think they pushed the receiver position just a little too much. Corey Davis at number 5, while I was huge on Corey Davis. Corey Davis he's going to be a great receiver. It could be worth a number 5 pick, but that is definitely something to talk about. They take the first receiver off the board, and it wasn't Mike Williams. It was Corey Davis at 5th overall.
And I think it's interesting that we were at the draft, and when they drafted Corey Davis, we thought Jamal Adams was probably going to slip to him or something. But when they drafted Corey Davis, I guess it kind of made sense, and it was an obvious one that I don't think we looked too deep into on the show the past couple of weeks, because when you look at the Titans roster, pretty much the only answer you need is offense, because as of now, we talk about
their defense is pretty solid.
Delaney Walker at the tight end position. Your wide receivers, Tajay Sharp, Rashard Matthews is solid. Like you said, Marcus Mariota is fantastic. I love Marcus Mariota. I think he's going to develop well in this league. And I think by adding this guy, Corey Davis, it makes 100% sense. DeMarco Murray, still your running back. I still like DeMarco Murray. I think he's great. And
especially in that system, yeah.
I think right now, Adoree Jackson getting that pick right there, the number 18 spot out of USC, I thought that was also a fantastic pick.
In my opinion, I thought that was a little bit of reach.
Because even with Jason McCourty departing from the secondary?
I don't think going cornerback was a reach. I think Adoree Jackson at cornerback was more of the reach. Now, I think a better pick would have been, if he didn't get charged for the rape allegation, probably would have been gone, but maybe even Gary Conley there, or possibly Tre'Davious White, because I like Adoree Jackson a lot, but I think he was more of a second-round talent. Well, yes, he's a good punt and kick returner. I feel like he's a little undersized to really compete in that division, but honestly, if you're looking at the division they're in, though, it's not too bad, because other than DeAndre Hopkins, what receiver's scaring you? You have T.Y. Hilton, but, if you get a nice physical cornerback on him, you can pretty much take him out of the game, so... Yeah. I like the cornerback pick at 18. I don't know how much I like the Adoree Jackson pick at 18. I think Adoree Jackson can be a pretty solid NFLer. I just don't think he was worth the 18th overall pick at this time.
Yeah, and
my opinion.
I'm going to agree with you, Mike, and I think it was funny that they drafted Brad Seaton, offensive tackle out of Villanova. I got to give another shout-out to Philadelphia. It's the last show of the year. We have to give all the shout-outs.
All the shout-outs we can.
All the possible shout-outs we can. I think one very, very interesting pick was Tywan Taylor, wide receiver out of Western
Double down a wide receiver.
Double down, man.
I kind of like it because you need depth. And
they brought in a talented guy, too. He played at Western Kentucky, I think
that offense was good. That offense was very good.
And I think people just throw it under the bus because they're not a legit power school, but it's like.
But they're still playing Division I football.
And they're still playing Division I football, and they're playing for a national championship, whether you believe they're going to win the national title or not. And this kid's good. Very similar numbers to Corey Davis: 17 touchdowns, 98 receptions, over 1,700 yards. Translated well at the combine too, around a 4.45, which is about the average for wide receivers at this combine last year.
That's a pretty good 40 to post up, really.
And like we said, Mike, we don't like to get too much into the combine, hence why I'm only adding when I talk about these players and their time in the combine and what they did and what they brought to the table as far as what the scouts saw. I thought that the 40-yard dash was a really good indicator, because also I really want to see wide receivers with speed in this league. So for the rest of the show, for the remainder of the show, just so you know, that's why I'm only mentioning the 40-yard dash, because I feel as if it's the most crucial.
I feel like that's the only thing that matters.
It can be debated, but at the wide receiver position, I like this a lot. I like the numbers he put up, and I think it translates well. I like Tywan Taylor. I think that's a Titans player name. I don't know why I think it's a Titans player name.
Oh, it's definitely a Titans player name.
I think it is, and like you said, Mike, the Titans they finished 9-7 last year, and I would say they're not the most hyped up or ever recognized team in this National Football League, but. You've talked about a 9-7 team. Yes, I understand a very poor AFC South division, but still 9-7. You can't take that away from him. Like you said, Mike, they tied for first in their division, and Marcus Mariota is translating quite fantastic.
Oh, he definitely took a big step up last year.
And I think adding Corey Davis, while you disagree with that, I think adding a hyped up guy like Adoree Jackson, Corey Levin, offensive guard out of Chattanooga. All these talented players, Tywan Taylor, Jaylen Brown, offensive linebacker, outside linebacker.
I like that Jaylen Brown pick.
Yeah, I like that a lot too, actually, if you would like to dive into that one a little bit, Mike. You got something to say on that?
I just really like UCLA linebackers. Lately, they're athletic, and I think
Yeah.
they're
McKinley
well, exactly
going to the Falcons.
they're
yeah.
well coached. Anthony Barr, all them,
Yeah.
they're well coached, and UCLA's been putting out some good linebackers lately. And I think in the 5th round,
It's a steal.
yeah,
I would call it a steal.
I really think it's a steal because they have a pretty solid defensive core, and everything. I just think adding a little bit more in the 5th round, does not hurt. I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, while he has a 4.67 40-yard dash and everybody puts all this stock into the combine, well, guess what? Guess what, world? You don't play football in tights. You play him in pads. So it's about what he does with the pads. And when he has the pads on, he's a very proficient player. And I think he can translate well. Take a little adjustment period. But I think that was a pretty quality pick for the 5th round.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of proficiency, I guess we should probably talk about what was the most proficient team in this division. Not so much anymore, the Indianapolis Colts. And I think it was funny because when we were talking about this draft, we had a lot of names out there. We had a lot of teams. We had a lot of teams that needed needs. One team that I just didn't even think about focusing on was the Indianapolis Colts and where they stand.
Other than the draft, what can they do? Because all their salary cap's tied up in Andrew Luck, and they pretty much just screwing themselves over for the next 5 years.
And coming off an 8-8 year, 3rd in the AFC South, a division they once ruled, a division. I mean, they were once competing with the Patriots for an AFC title.
I mean, that's what happens when we got Peyton Manning, though.
And
well, even with Andrew Luck, they're doing it, but they just really took a step down.
They
crumbled. It crumbled, man.
And you got to think though. I do like how they addressed, and I like how they came out. Like I just said, Mike, they finished 8-8 last year. Not a very flashy record.
I mean, yeah, and I like how they started off.
Very good first pick.
The offense was flying off the board. So I those teams, starting from the Eagles, probably from the 14 to like 23 range, were like, oh my goodness, we're gonna have a chance to get a defensive stud. And the Colts saw that and they took advantage of it because, God, that secondary was awful, man. That was a very, very poor secondary.
Right.
And Malik Hooker, I think he's a true center fielder. I think he can just sit back there, fall back 20 yards, and he can help them corners, whatever cornerback side he's helping. So, and he's a pretty solid tackler too. So I like how they addressed the need first of all. They didn't play around with it. They didn't try to do anything flashy. Malik Hooker, I think by far is the best player on the board there, and they need it because God's sakes, they need a safety.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that the first 2 picks were secondary. Obviously, getting Quincy Wilson out of Florida. I love Florida secondary players. I'm a big two-stepper, guys.
I mean, SEC secondary players are good, really.
Fantastic. Malik Hooker, safety, and also, how could we not give him a shout-out? Nate Hairston coming in the 5th round, the cornerback out of Temple. I like how they address the needs. And also, one guy I really, really like that they got picked up. See, the Colts right now, here's one thing about the Colts. What don't the Colts have that I feel like we're not really addressing right now, Mike, besides Frank Gore? They don't have a running back.
And with Marlon Mack, they adjusted it.
And it's funny, we saw Marlon Mack play in person, Mike.
And he's very good, to say the least. He did a good job against a Temple defense that was very high in the ranks in the nation. And I think Frank Gore. I mean, God, I think he's a true Iron Man of the NFL. There's just going to be a time where he's just not going to be the starting NFL running back as he once was. Because he's a few years north of 30 now. I don't know how much longer he can hold up. I hope he holds up for another 6 years because hey, I want to see Frank Gore play. But I think they did a good pick because I think Marlon Mack will be the backup this year because Frank Gore obviously has no sense of retiring soon. So I think next year the year after this he'll take a huge step up. I really like that pick. They definitely address some needs. I would have liked them to see it go a little bit more offensive line than just Zach Banner in my opinion because Andrew Luck's a big guy, he can take hits, but geez, he can't take all them hits and still lead you to the playoffs. So I would like them to see go a little bit more offensive line. But I like how they did address it. I would have liked to maybe earlier address of the offensive line, but it really wasn't a deep class. I don't blame him really. And
there's only one guy it's great bridge about the offensive line, Mike, because there's only one guy I really like on this offensive line. It's Anthony Costanzo.
Exactly.
So I think it's interesting that they didn't really address that. I mean, when we look at this roster altogether, wide receivers, Moncrief, you talk about swoop at the tight end position, Andrew Luck's your quarterback, obviously given T.Y. Hilton.
Their wide receiver core, while it does have names,
and
it's low key bad. And
also adding that Kamar Aiken from Baltimore, good slot guy, fast, quick guy. Who knows? Maybe he can be an answer in Indianapolis. We'll see. Andrew Luck's still a good quarterback, but
Andrew Luck's a very good quarterback. It's just they actually gotta have NFL talent other than him on the roster to be good. And they still finished 8-8, and really that team was bad. I think that just shows how good the T.Y. Hilton Andrew Luck combo is.
Right.
I just feel like they need to build around that, and I really think they need to start defense and. they started defense, and I kind of like it. So I think they can definitely take a step up. But I just don't feel like they added enough to compete with the Texans and the up and coming Titans.
And
really.
I'll be all eyes on them when the season starts. Obviously, I mean they start out the season out of their first 5 games, 4 of them are division games. You talk about they're playing. Well, excuse me, no, actually, looking at the wrong part of the schedule here. From their 6th to 10th game, 4 of those are divisions. They got to play the Titans, and they got to play the Jags, and they got to play the Texans, and then they got to play the Titans again, and then the Jaguars. Very heavy middle of the pack division schedule. Also, the way the year starts, they can get off to a great start here. They can easily start off this year 3-0. And when I look at the schedule, this is it. This is a year for the Colts because when I look at every team they play, there's only one team that I'm like, all right, there's no way they're winning that game. And it's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good year for them.
They have a chance to do something.
They need to use the sort of advantage because it's tainted towards them right now. The AFC South is saying, Colts, we want you, man. And I think this is going to be the year. We talked a lot about, obviously, the Houston Texans and the Jaguars, but as far as easy schedules go and strength and overall toughest matchups at the toughest times in the season, I think the Colts have the best chance of finishing this division with the best record. Altogether, though, I think the talent's in Houston right now. So
talent definitely is in Houston.
Definitely.
So I think we should shift to the NFC South. We gave the AFC South our all. We gave it a valiant effort, and I love the effort we gave. But we're going to shift over to the NFC and just try to guess who's going to win this division this year because it just rotates every other year. If you think about it, I mean, the Panthers will make the Super Bowl, then the next year they'll be bad. The Falcons will make the Super Bowl next year, still to be determined. But if the previous years in NFC South are predictable, this or anything's of sign to come, this division is definitely wide open. And I think a team that will take this wide open division is by far the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't even have to ask you the question. We know who won the draft in this division, and it was by far the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You want to know why? Guess who they got at 19th overall?
O.J. Howard.
And he's very good.
Talented.
If you asked us before this draft, and if anybody asked us, do you think O.J. Howard's going to last to the Buccaneers? I would have said no, and I'm pretty sure you would have said no as well.
Yeah.
And they got him at 19. And who's their quarterback again?
Jameis Winston, who's developing quite well in this league.
Who's their number 1 receiver?
They have Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, and Humphreys.
Oh my goodness, they are very good.
And they had Godwin, the wide receiver at Penn State. As much as we don't like Penn State, you gotta give him to that, stealing him.
I mean, I like the Kendall Beckwith linebacker to LSU.
100%.
I mean, just any LSU defender is
Justin
is
Evans,
very
safety out of Texas A&M.
Jeremy McNichols, we didn't talk about him because Boise State's no longer the Kellen Moore Boise State that we all know and love. I mean, it's they still got the blue turf. They're
Kellen Moore, where did you come from?
We love Kellen Moore. In case you didn't know, we love Kellen Moore on the show. But the Jeremy McNichols, Boise State running on the blue turf, he was pretty good with the swag out there they got in Boise State. I mean, so I like that pick because, I don't know why, to be honest, why they don't have faith in Doug Martin because, in my opinion, if Doug Martin's healthy, I think he's definitely a top 7, 8 running back in the league. So that was the only thing that really questions me with this franchise, why they don't trust Doug Martin because I think he can be very good. But other than that, I just feel like just the fact that they got O.J. Howard, who's, people are saying who's the next coming of a healthy Rob Gronkowski, and we all know how good a healthy Rob Gronkowski can be.
Healthy, though.
Healthy.
So,
I really like that because Jameis Winston, he's really good. In my opinion, I think he's another Donovan McNabb, but actually with weapons. And I think if Donovan McNabb with weapons is very good, and you have Jameis Winston with weapons, which is something to look out for. So I think the Buccaneers, they should be the favorite to win this division.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying that because when we look at the Buccaneers, ever since they brought in Jameis Winston, a lot of people didn't give Jameis Winston. They thought, because I remember that year, it was the Winston Mariota draft.
Yeah.
And a lot of props was given to Mariota, but obviously Winston was ahead of him in that draft. He was drafted first overall, first pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when I look at his career stats and I look at what he's done so far, I'm impressed to say the least. I love how he's come into this league. Career so far, he already has over 8,100 yards. He's already thrown for over 50 touchdowns. Last season, he threw for almost 30 touchdowns. And I look at his career long. He does throw a decent amount of interceptions, but we talk about what he did last year and the comparably to his first year in the NFL. Threw significantly less intersections. He does need to get a little bit smarter with the ball in the red zone. That did hurt the Buccaneers a lot. But Mike, like you said, there's no reason.
They got a red zone, target besides Mike Evans now. They have O.J. Howard.
O.J. Howard, Deshaun Jackson's your long ball guy. Doug Martin, when healthy, you develop him, you're going to be fine. And I
The
mean,
offensive line, it's going to hold its own. There's nothing bad about this offensive line.
No.
It's just an average
Dotson,
NFL
Smith,
offensive
good
line.
guys on the edge, like them a lot. The left tackle, right tackle position, inside right guard. Mark Pitt, fantastic. I love the center, by the way.
I mean,
Holly.
what about their defense? I mean,
Overall-
we can go on about their offense. Their defense is pretty good too.
And their
Vernon
def-
Hargreaves, Ben Grimes, Vernon Hargreaves. They took him with, I believe it was the 8th overall pick last year. Very good rookie year,
Gerald
in my
McCoy,
opinion.
defensive tackle, obviously.
Oh,
Goes without
we
saying.
all know about him, and
All goes without saying.
I mean, he's really good. Noah Spence, when he was healthy last year, had a very good year. Quan Alexander, in the middle is a very good middle linebacker to have, and let's not forget about Levante David. So I really think this team has good everything, and really just adding OJ Howard and all that, it just helps out, man. Just really does.
Oh my gosh, and I can't believe it. Like 9-7, second in the NFC South. Obviously, they've won a Super Bowl before, so it's not totally disbelievable, but just the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now.
I mean,
Good for him. You can't
and
not
just
feel
the
good.
way the NFC South is every year. I mean, you have the Saints will make the playoffs, and then next year they go 7-9. Then you
Right.
have the Panthers making the playoffs, and the next year, Cam Newton is probably the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, it's just how it goes. And in the 7th round, I like how they had a Pacific Island name, Stevie Tuilagovatu, whatever his name is.
That's
at
a tackle at
USC.
USC. They love recruiting overseas in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's
I love Pacific Island names.
It's big. It's funny because my dad's good friend, he does sports radio for the Chargers out in San Diego, and he was talking to me about the University of Hawaii. He was actually good friends with one of their assistant coaches, and when they're recruiting all these players to go to the University of Hawaii, or when USC, UCLA, Berkeley, all these West Coast schools, when they're recruiting these players, I'm put about 90% of the time they have no clue what these guys' names are, and they have no clue what they mean. I mean, I would presume that the last name would be tainted down, or you would have a nickname. Is his name Stevie? So I would presume his friends call him Steve or Stevie.
Yeah, they
I don't think they would call him by, like, how sometimes I'll be like, yo, Zingroni. I don't think they would be like, oh, to luck of
I'm gonna call him Votto.
Devado. Oh my god, let's
I'll
call him
Votto.
Votto.
Yeah,
Votto,
that's
baby.
a pretty thing.
Votto's a dope nickname. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. And, just kind of a little sidetrack there, but it's always great to see Pacific Islander players coming in the NFL. They're strong guys. They're physical. They're passionate. And they got great work ethic. And I think it's a good steal here. USC had a great draft. Got to give it up to USC.
Mm-hmm.
Sneaking into that Rose Bowl last year. And, oh, by the way, winning that Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah.
So this is a big year for USC. Obviously, losing
It
Dory
really
Jackson,
is,
too.
yeah. And it was a good draft by the Bucks, but let's go to a solidified nickname we have, Run CMC and Christian
Oh,
McCaffrey. And he was the 8th overall pick for the Panthers. And, we tweeted out, and it was my thought how, they go Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuels in rounds 1 and 2 and the 8th overall pick in both rounds, respectively. How, their motto is keep pounding. They got
Right.
that big drum. You get Steph Curry looking small as heck in a Panthers jersey. I mean, can't even lift up the thing, and he's pounding. Keep pounding, keep pounding. Well, how are they going to pound a Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel? I don't think they're going to pound a lot. I think they're going to run a lot, but I don't think they're going to be pounding it.
Well, it's funny because I was like I was trying to avoid the whole talk about the Panthers till the very end, and there's a very good reason why, Mike, because we're both going to agree right here. And as much as I'd like to disagree with you, Mike, there's not much pounding that's going on right now.
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver.
I mean, when
Christian
you're
McCaffrey looks like a Curtis Samuel right now. I mean, he's under 96 pounds, 5'10". He's not much bigger than Dede Westbrook. Talented. I mean,
he's
over
talented. I
96
mean, I'm
yards.
assuming since they just got Christian McCaffrey that there's no way they're going first 2 rounds on running back. So I'm assuming they're definitely going to play him at wide receiver, and I'm assuming he's going to go in the slot.
Right.
And really, the Panthers, I mean, they made the Super Bowl. They go 6-10 next year, and it's really not looking up because
In an AFC South division that they very easily, NFC South division that they very easily could have taken over.
Exactly, it can definitely take it over, and the news just keeps getting worse because Kelvin Benjamin walks into camp this year and he's weighing 280 pounds.
Yep.
I mean, it really doesn't get better. I mean, I don't know how much I like their draft. I mean, I think they added some good players. Corn Elder, that's a great name out of Miami. Alexander Armide of West Virginia. I really think that was a value pick, but you're looking at Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel in rounds 1 and 2. I think Curtis Samuel is more of, a beginning of day 3 pick or, a round 3 pick. And they take him 8th overall pick in the 2nd round. I know they took Christian McCaffrey, but they didn't have to take Christian McCaffrey in the 1st round, and they would have had a shot at Dalvin Cook in the 2nd round.
Sorry, Mike, did you say 280 pounds was on Travis Benjamin right now?
Mm-hmm.
280 pounds.
Kelvin Benjamin, yeah.
Well, it's funny because it's like when you look at Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, you're on the opposite pole because you want to bulk them up, you want to give them a diet. And listen, I get it. Like, when you're an NFL player and you're on this they all have nutritionists, they're all working out every day, they're all trying to keep their bodies in tip-top shape. This is a damaging league. We've seen what it does to players. We see why players retire so early. And listen, I don't care if you're at home with your kids in the off season, you want to go out, you want to get a Big Mac, you really want a Big Mac, or you want to go out, you want to get a Frosty, or you want to have a little fun in the off season. But if you're a pro caliber NFL wide receiver and you're showing up to camp, not camp, if you're showing up to workouts and you're 280 pounds and you're Travis Benjamin and you damn well know right now that you're probably one of the best wide receivers on this team. That's not a great look.
That really isn't a great look.
It's not.
And unless they're having a whole conspiracy theory, hey, they can move Kelvin Benjamin to running back and put Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel 1-2 receiver. How does that sound? So they can do that keep pounding thing.
And listen, everyone knows the only player on offense who is allowed to get away with eating Big Macs every week is Mike Tolbert, and that's just because Mike Tolbert
Exactly.
signed the contract. He's the cannonball.
He is the guy. I mean,
he's the cannonball. Also, when we talk about the running back position, we talk about Whitaker and Curtis Artis Payne here, but there wasn't really any addressing to the running back position, because when you bring in like Christian McCaffrey, I guess you could
he's more of an athlete.
Are you really addressing the running back by bringing him in?
That's why where we're talking about this during the draft. Like all the Eagles fans there, they all wanted Christian McCaffrey, and what was I saying? Well, he's not a running back; he's an athlete.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He's not a 4-down running back that we all know and love. The Panthers usually have. I mean, Jonathan Stewart. I mean, I know he gets hurt, every other week. But, I mean, he was still your 4-down running back.
He's old, too.
I mean, he's getting older. I just didn't understand the fit Christian McCaffrey has here. That I am not denying that Christian McCaffrey has talent. Because the man has talent. He can run, catch, break people's ankles, all the
But there's more than running and catching in this league.
Exactly, there's a lot more. And especially if you're Carolina Panthers, you want to ground and pound. How are you going to ground and pound with Christian McCaffrey?
You're not.
Yes, he could run in between the tackles. But here's the thing. He ran in between the tackles in the Pac-12.
Where how many points were scored on average? Would you say, Mike, around 40 to 60?
Yeah, around 40 to 60. Yeah, I mean, you can look. Oh, University of Washington had a good defense. No, they had a good pass defense. They couldn't stop the run.
That's why Alabama just ran it right up the middle and won that game with ease.
Exactly. Look, Bo Scarborough. We didn't hear about him all year. Goes against Washington. He just breaks everybody's. He just kills everybody. Then Colorado. Oh, Colorado had a good defense. No, they had a good pass defense, but they couldn't stop anybody.
Right.
I'm saying I just don't understand how he fits the Carolina Panthers. That's my only complaint with this draft. I mean, you got these other random names, but I just really don't think the Panthers did a really good job drafting this year. Really,
I like for the future. Well, if I had to make a guess, obviously Greg Olson's your tight end. You put Kelvin Benjamin on the wide. You put Funchess on the wide. What you can do with Christian McCaffrey here is, and I don't see why this was worth a first-round pick, but this is probably the most ideal thing. You can throw him on special teams or a kickoff returner, and he can be essentially what Donald Pumphrey is about to be for the Eagles. He can essentially be a special teams guy. Or you could throw him on the inside slot. You could throw him as a slot guy, real slight guy like Kamar Aiken, former Baltimore Ravens receiver.
Yeah.
I think you can throw him in, but
I just think in the early second round there was definitely a lot more options, a lot better options.
There were.
There definitely was
a lot of more pound. When we talk about the philosophy of pounding, I can name you 3 off the top of my head who were still available as far as pounding running back skill. Obviously, Joe Mixon had the offseason issues. Talk about Samaje Pernier obviously having that. You can talk about Tariq Cohen being out of the D1AA. You saw that backflip video, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic playing at North Carolina A&T. I thought it was interesting how if you're going to draft Christian McCaffrey, you might as well draft a guy like Tariq Cohen, because Tariq Cohen's the same size as Christian McCaffrey. He's bigger and he's just as fast.
Yeah, I mean, if we're on the topic of ground and pound running backs, we'll move on from the Panthers. We'll go to the defending NFC East champions. And a name I was looking in the beginning of the whole draft process was Brian Hill out of Wyoming. Yeah, I mean, you didn't hear him because he goes to Wyoming. I mean, you don't hear a lot of these players because of the colleges they go to. I mean, go to Wyoming. Can we take a second? Wyoming has some swag, my man.
Yeah.
Wyoming has some nice jerseys.
Malcolm Floyd.
Yeah.
That's all you can think of, obviously, when you talk about, the Wyoming Cowboys. I mean, you talk about their nice helmets, those matte white helmets. You talk about those raw,
I like when they go the matte white, brown unis and, yellow pants. I mean, that's pretty tough.
And also, I hear Jackson Hole's fantastic vacation spot. I've not gotten the chance to go there yet, but I hear the slopes there are quite nice. I wouldn't see why you wouldn't play full ride ball out there. Besides the fact that it's Wyoming, you don't really get the name with it. And also, I'd like to point out the fact that while most people don't believe it, Wyoming supposedly, and I just hear this, like, supposedly has a lot of nice scenery. So I would hope that
it does. Trust me, Wyoming does.
I would hope that when me and Mike plan to take our trip, our post-show trip to Wyoming, when this is all said and done, that we can take all that in, and maybe even get a visit to the University of Wyoming.
Hey,
because
why not? Yeah. So I mean, this running back Brian Hill, I liked how the Falcons picked him. I think there's no questions asked. Devontae Freeman is your number one guy, and there should be no speculation. Oh, we need to bring in his predecessor. We need to bring in someone to take over him. But I think Brian Hill as a guy, you're on the 2-yard line, and you already thrown 4 fade touchdowns at Julio Jones because Julio Jones is the next coming of God. You got to run it in. I think Brian Hill's your guy. I really like that pick in the 5th round. It was a value pick. He was a name I wanted the Eagles to target, but they went Donald Pumphrey, so they didn't need to go running back out of that. But let's start with their first round. Dakaris McKinley.
Yep.
I really like that. Him bringing out a picture of his grandma. You know the man's motivated. You know the man wants to play. I mean, a UCLA product. I like that as their first round pick. And another name I think is going to be the best name in this draft class. We're a couple years down the road. Down the road. Duke Riley.
Yeah.
And if you look at their young defense, Vic Beasley, Deion Jones, who was another LSU product who played with Duke Riley, they're side by side, man in the middle of that defense for the Tigers. I really think they have an even better defense than last year. And really, if you look last year, their defense collapsed in the Super Bowl, and they really took notice of that. And they're like, all right, we're going defense. We'll sprinkle in a little offense because they're not far away. And I think they're built up for more success than the Panthers. Because 1, I think Matt Ryan's better than Cam Newton.
Yeah.
2, you have the best receiver. Yeah. 2, you have the best receiver in the league, and 3, your defense is very young and going to be very good, and you don't have people leaving after the year after you win a Super Bowl like the Panthers.
And I think it's funny, Mike. This is only compliments because we brought him up on the show earlier. Obviously, the Falcons acquired Dontari Poe over the offseason. We talk about Hagman on the line. We talk about Reed on the defensive end position. We don't even need to mention Vic Beasley because he's just on a known caliber of his own class of his own within the Atlanta Falcons. And I think this is a great addition. Like you said, Dakaris McKinley, he's motivated, playing for his grandma. I thought that was super cool that he brought that photo out. I always like a guy who is motivated like him. And Duke Riley on the inside linebacker position to complement Beasley. I think this is a great draft for him altogether.
Yeah, I honestly think
I like it.
I mean, they didn't have a lot of holes. I mean, they just went to the Super Bowl, so a team that just went to the Super Bowl usually doesn't have a lot of holes unless you're Panthers and luck out.
Yeah.
So I think they did a good job. They got a center. They got another cornerback. They got some good defensive depth. You can never have enough pass rushers, and you can never have enough first round talent pass rushers. And they got them. So I really think this is a team that they got their backup running back who's going to be good. I really think they addressed some slight needs because they didn't have a lot of them, but I think they pretty much made out. There's really not a lot to say about the Falcons. Except for they had a really solid draft. They've been drafting good the last couple of years, and I really think they're still going up. And I think the Buccaneers are going to give them a good challenge, and I honestly think the Buccaneers can win this division.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it's going to come down to who wins the head-to-head matchup between the Buccaneers and the Falcons.
Yeah.
Because I think those two teams are pretty much evenly matched.
Because offensively, they're fine. They got Tevin Coleman still the running back, Devontae Freeman still your other running back, Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, and Matt Ryan's your quarterback. Matt Ryan just came off a great year. He should use this as momentum, I think.
Exactly, and I know they're going to be coming back hungry after that.
They can, and I think Matt Ryan is capable.
When you blow a loss like that, and they're probably scrolling through Twitter, every now and then. If you're scrolling through Twitter, you're going to get reminded that you blew a 28-3 lead. So I think they're going to come back with motivation. In the Super Bowl. So I think they're going to be motivated, and I think they're going to be a very good team. You got to watch out for. It's just I think the Buccaneers really added a lot of talent. That's the only reason I'm scared with the Buccaneers and NFC South.
And moving on from one team, shifting gears here, one team that I see that really shouldn't have too much motivation at the moment with their current situation is the New Orleans Saints. I don't really see much reason to be excited right now in New Orleans.
I kind of like what they did, though.
But here's why. Here's my next point here. I don't really see much more reason to be excited because you're coming off a 7-9 third in the NFC South. I don't see much to be excited as of now, but when we look at the long run here, I think they win this draft in this division in the long run here, drafting Trey Hendrickson, defensive end out of Florida Atlantic, a rising program down there in Boca Raton. Alvin Kamara out of Tennessee, very solid. Ryan Ramczyk, Ryan
I
Ramczyk
love
was
their
still.
first round picks.
Marshall Lattimore, totally appropriate.
You can't go wrong.
And it was. I think it was the first pick in the draft where we were like, "Wow, the first one that actually makes sense."
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, we were
mean?
sitting there, it was like, wow, we actually have a reasonable draft pick that just happened, and
right.
I really like it. I like the Ryan Ramczyk pick because you can't go wrong with an offensive tackle out of Washington. I mean, not Washington, Wisconsin. I mean, you can never go wrong with that. I mean, they just produce all the 6'5" white guys I know how to block. But I mean, a pick that really confuses me, but I like at the same time is Alvin Kamara. I mean, I know you're a huge Alvin Kamara guy. You know, go Vols for you. I mean, I kind of liked Alvin Kamara too. You convinced me. You got me on the Alvin Kamara bandwagon. But you have Mark Ingram and you just signed Adrian Peterson, so what is he doing?
Well, there's only one reason and I'll say the same exact thing about Christian McCaffrey. The only use you have for him is special teams or a slot, and I think...
Yeah, honestly, they'll probably use him as a scat back. Just get him some formations, probably third down running back to come out of the backfield.
I think they see him as... if you're the New Orleans Saints, I believe that you see him as a wide receiver because you just lost Brandon Cooks to New England. And your best long down-the-field guy... I mean, it's not Colby Fleener. It's obviously Snead. I mean, if you look at this roster right now, it's Willie Snead.
I mean, Michael Thomas.
He's still very young. He's 24. Willie Snead's very young still.
Michael Thomas is a receiver they took out of Ohio State last year. He was very good. I mean,
second year, 23, 24 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
24 years old.
I like that Kamara pick because it's obvious you're not going to have Adrian Peterson after 2 years, and you shouldn't have Adrian Peterson after 2 years if you want to go anywhere. But I really think they were just trying to get offensive weapons. You know, when they came by him, I mean. This was really the only offensive player they picked, really. So, I mean, so they need Drew Brees because they only has 2 more years. That they just need people for Drew Brees to throw the ball to because they had a lot of production from their offense last year, and there's just games where people go quiet and someone you never heard of just steps up, and I think Alvin Kamara can be that guy every now and then. And like you said on special teams, I think he's gonna be very utilized a lot in the return game because honestly, other than that, how's he going to play when you have Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson right depth chart ahead of you?
And it's a young roster. I mean, I guess that's the whole theme of it. It's a youthful roster, and it's a very old quarterback in Drew Brees, so it's a little uneven at the moment, but there are holes to be filled. I think they addressed a couple of needs, maybe not what they wanted, but, I still think that this is solid for them, and I think getting Alvin Kamara can add an offensive weapon. So, overall, I would say, Mike, who do you think the winner is here? I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're probably going to agree with me here.
Yeah, it definitely has to be Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I like what the Falcons did, just solidifying their team. But, I mean, how can a team at division pick O.J. Howard at 19th overall with the offense they already had and not win that division, really?
Right.
Like, how can they not? So I think it's just fair to say.
Yep. Well, folks, you know what the drill is. There's more football when you come back. Stay focused. Stay put.
Hydrate.
Hydration is key. Grab a bowl of popcorn, put on your favorite NFL jersey. We'll be right back with the North. We're going up to the Great White North. And we're back, as we always are, on time here. And as I said before the break, we were going to move on up to the Great White North here, even though it is April approaching May. Actually, is today the first day of May?
Today's the first day of May.
Wow. It is May 1st, ladies and gentlemen. I had no idea it was the 1st of May, and it's funny because we're going to talk about the cold right now, and you should probably get your jackets on because here we go. We're going to start out with one team that really frustrated me and Mike a lot, and I think frustrated a fan of the National Football League. We're going to talk about the Chicago Bears. Obviously, giving up a lot of draft picks. What was it, 4, Mike?
They gave up a 3rd and 4th this year's draft, and they gave up, I believe it was a 3rd-round pick next year.
And so
one spot. For one spot. One spot they gave up that much. Sorry, I just had to say that. We'll get to more Bears trash talking a little bit.
Well, folks, in case you weren't sitting at your television on your couch on Thursday night, or if you were in attendance with the other 100,000 of us at the Philadelphia downtown Art Museum for the NFL Draft, in case you weren't tuned in, the Bears traded up to get the 2nd overall pick. Take Mitchell Trubisky, quarterback at the University of North Carolina. So this pick, to me, when we first saw this pick, it was a lot of shock, and I think the first reason why it was a lot of shock is because you just signed Mike Glennon, who I still believe
a very lucrative contract.
I still believe hasn't gotten the proper opportunity. I think he's
of course.
I think he's solid, and when we look at this draft, you take Mitchell Trubisky, and then you take Adam Shaheen, a tight end at Ashland, You take Eddie Jackson, who's injury prone, a safety at Alabama. You take Tariq Cohen, who I said earlier, and I like Tariq Cohen.
But in the fourth round, how much do you like Tariq Cohen?
You don't like Tariq Cohen that much in the fourth round, and
You're
I don't
not
think he's that
supposed to.
great. He's 5'6", 179 pounds.
I
The
think
guy's
they did
small.
a lot of reaching because
He's smaller than Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a lot of reaching because they know they screwed up when they traded all those picks to the 49ers. Because if you look later when Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, those teams traded up. Here's what the Texans gave up to go from pick, I believe it was 24 or somewhere in that area to pick 12. They gave up that first round pick. They just swapped first round picks and a first round pick next year. That's all they gave up. They gave up one extra first round pick for Deshaun Watson. And to move up one spot, when the 49ers weren't even going to draft Mitchell Trubisky.
They wanted nothing with him. We knew from the start they wanted Solomon Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they were going to draft Solomon Thomas at 2. I mean, I was just reading an article. They said, oh, yeah, we're going to draft Solomon Thomas at 2 if somehow the Bears finessed him. We were going to take Reuben Foster at 3. But, like, I just feel like the Bears knew they screwed up trading away all those picks. They just reached for needs. I mean, you need a running back, but how much do you need a running back? I mean, Jordan Howard wasn't awful last year, but how much do you need Tariq Cohen in the 4th round? You don't need Tariq Cohen in the 4th round a lot. You really don't need him a lot.
And I think the only player when I look at this draft and I'm like, okay, there you go, Chicago. But at the same time, not there you go, Chicago, is Eddie Jackson. I'm going to talk about Eddie Jackson a little bit last season at Alabama. He had 24 tackles, 1 interception, and there's a reason why the stats are not flashy because he is injury prone. As I said earlier, ran a 4.55 with the 40-yard dash. Played, and I guess this is where I give him the upside, is he's a senior. So he played 5 years under Nick Saban in the SEC, under Nick Saban. Let me just reiterate that, under Nick Saban. So you got that in your head? You played for Nick Saban. Good. So essentially the reason I like this pick a lot but don't like it is because I think he's a solid piece to add to a Bears defense that's really, really crippled up right now. It's a big mess in Chicago, but at the same time he's injury prone. When I look at the free safety position, I look at Demps, I look at Prince Amakumara from Nebraska, I think about Cooper at the left cornerback position, I think about Floyd here at the outside linebacker, you talk about Denny Trevathan here, inside linebacker, Hicks on the line, Goldman on the line, Young at the outside linebacker position. There is not one guy on this defense where I look at them and I think that right now in the current state of the NFL, I go, wow, okay, that's who you should build your defense around besides Danny Trevathan. And even Danny Trevathan, since leaving Denver, has not been as talented or as
I think it's mainly because of the fact that the Bears don't have talent like the Broncos had. Like the Broncos had Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, we can go on, and like the Bears just don't have talent. And really, if you're looking at the draft class for the Bears, you really can't give it a grade because it all depends. 5 years from now, is Mitchell Trubisky starting? Okay, if he's starting, that's a minimum C+. Is he playing good? Then you can move it up.
So like a B minus.
Yeah, I mean,
84%.
It could definitely even move up to an A. Mitchell Trubisky becomes the guy that
Hopefully
Chicago's been looking for ever since Sid Luckman in the 40s. I mean, so I think it's just mainly on that. But I think the only reasonable explanation for these picks is the Bears know that they're so bad and they got screwed over in the 49ers trade. They're just going to get needs and just hope they can develop them because guess what? They're not going to be good in the next 5 years. So I think it's just really on the back of Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, you had Mike Lennon, so I don't know how much you need to give up all that for Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, unless you really believe the guy. And, hey, I guess they really believe in Mitchell Trubisky as a quarterback because they did give up a lot for him. So Mitchell Trubisky, the city of Chicago is yours. You just have to go get it. And if you don't go get it, you're going to be under a lot of scrutiny, and the Bears would be even more screwed than they are now.
And one team that's also in a tough position, and another team that a lot of eyes were on in this draft, considering the overwhelming amount of picks they had, was the Minnesota Vikings taking Dalvin Cook first overall. Mike, you were a big Dalvin Cook guy. You wanted the Eagles to get Dalvin Cook. You compared him. You said he was like a mini Devontae Freeman or a Devontae Freeman on steroids.
He went to Florida State. He has the dreads. He has muscles. He's Devontae Freeman in a different costume.
I want to ask you, Mike, right now, with the quarterback position, Teddy Bridgewater possibly never even playing another down in the NFL, Sam Bradford being the quarterback, do you...
Sam Bradford, I love it.
Do you think, and do you agree with the Vikings not addressing a quarterback need in this draft? Do you think there was room to not get a quarterback? Do you think that they overlooked it and they didn't see the bigger picture?
I definitely agree with it because... One, they didn't have a first-round draft pick, so I think the last things they needed to do with the first-round draft pick, they actually traded away for Sam Bradford. So I think the last thing they needed to do was trade even more picks just to get a quarterback when this quarterback class wasn't even that good. So I mean, they had a lot of picks. I mean, a lot of more 4th, 7th rounders. That's where the majority of their picks came in. But I think for what they had, they did pretty good. I agree that they don't go quarterback because the quarterback classes, it can only go up next year and the year after that because this was just so bad other than Deshaun Watson and Mr. Trubisky. I mean, jeez, who else do you have?
And we can't. I don't even compare Trubisky to Watson. I think they're totally two
Mhm.
different players. Even at the same time, a lot of people would
Exactly.
disagree. I think they're totally two different guys.
Oh, they're in totally two different positions in their current state of playing right now. But I honestly think the Vikings did good because I was reading up a little bit and they traded up 2 spots ahead of the Eagles. They jumped the Eagles to get Dalvin Cook, and I think it was a known fact that the Eagles were going to get Dalvin Cook. I mean,
Right.
Howie Roseman even said, "Yeah, we're going to draft Dalvin Cook," and I think the Vikings are smart because if I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, you need a running back, and I mean, yeah, you got Latavius Murray, but when you had Dalvin Cook there, he fell to the second round. You needed to jump the Eagles to get him because I guarantee you they're sitting in that worm. Geez, the Eagles screwed us over. Got a first and a fourth round pick for Sam Bradford. We can't let these guys take Dalvin Cook from us. So they did a good job jumping there. I think they're smart. I mean, hey, Dalvin Cook's good. I mean,
And yeah.
I talked about him pretty much on every show, or at least I wanted to. I mean, the dude's good. I mean, I don't know how much more I can say about him.
Right.
He can do it all. He can pass, catch. I mean, I honestly think he was better than Christian McCaffrey because I mean he can run between the tackles better than Christian McCaffrey. And the thing is, he can still take a screen pass 60 yards to the house.
Right.
So,
And I think it's the perfect answer to because it's obviously it goes without saying that Adrian Peterson was the face of the franchise in Minnesota, and with him departing to go to New Orleans, I think it was quite necessary and quite refreshing that they addressed the running back position right away. It gave Vikings fans some security. They're coming off an 8-8 season where they finished third in the NFC North, and I look at this team right now and I'm a little concerned just because Sam Bradford is still your quarterback, and I just don't think long term Sam Bradford's really the answer. But
yeah, I think they know that too.
and I think
that.
one guy I really liked him picking up at the 6th round was Bucky Hodges, the tight end out of Virginia Tech, because
he had like day 2 grades and he
Right.
fell all the way to the 6th round. That definitely was a steal.
and I think it complements him quite well with Rudolph here at the tight end position. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is great. If Laquan Treadwell could come around, he
Exactly.
could come around. I mean, we add this to what they got in this draft. Also, Rodney Adams, the wide receiver out of South Florida. South Florida had a great year. Stacy Coley, wide receiver out of the U.
Yeah, and they helped out their offensive line.
Right.
Pat Eflin out of Ohio State. Arguably the best center in this draft class. They got him in the 3rd round. I think that was a pretty good quality pick.
Ben Gideon, inside linebacker out of Michigan. Michigan was fantastic. Almost every Michigan player on the board this year, I wouldn't disagree with picking.
Oh, really? I mean, at the end of the day, no. I mean,
No.
this was just a team where they had a lot of prospects, and you had to take them when you had the chance.
Right.
But I really like the Vikings pick. I mean, they had a lot of picks. They didn't do anything bold or surprising other than trading up to get Dalvin Cook, which I agree with because I think Dalvin Cook was a running back. Not a can't miss prospect, but a prospect you would be unfortunate to miss out on.
Right.
So, I mean, I really like what they had to do because if you look at it, their team's really not that bad. Honestly, other than the fact that Sam Bradford doesn't throw the ball more than 25 yards downfield, their offensive line isn't awful. They had Latavius Murray, now they added Dalvin Cook to it. Their receivers are okay, they just need to come around. I mean, they could use some receiver help, and they did address it by drafting 2 receivers. And their defense is pretty darn good. I mean, when they started out 5-0 last year, where they saying, "Oh my goodness, the Vikings defense is insane."
Right.
And hey, that's what it's all about. So I think they're a pretty good team. They definitely picked up some needs. They had a plethora of draft picks. It just all matter, can they develop them?
Right.
Can they develop them?
And we're going to move from large quantities to small quantities. The team that drafted the least in this division, and the team that a lot of people have their eyes on coming off a 9-7 season, was the Detroit Lions, who apparently had a vacation to Florida the week before because they drafted 2 Florida players, right?
Yeah, 1, 2.
I guess
Two good Florida players.
I guess they found their way in Florida, and they liked it a lot down in Gainesville. I heard Gainesville's a nice area, no disrespect to Florida. Obviously drafting Tease Tarver, the cornerback out of Florida, who New England was very interested in, actually, for the longest time. And
the only knock on him, he was underwhelming in the combine.
Right.
I just said it earlier in the show. Why do you put stock in the combine when they play football in pads, not tights?
And Gerard Davis, the first overall, the 21st pick, a guy talked up a lot, an inside linebacker out of Florida. I mean, 60 tackles in the season last year, in a 4.61.
And your boy that I heard plenty from you about, Jalen Reeves-Maven, in the 4th round.
Out of Tennessee.
I was surprised he fell to day 3, to be honest. I thought he could be a 3rd-round pick.
And I think the reason he did slip back, though, is obviously, like you said, Mike, he didn't really have the combine that people wanted him to.
Yeah,
but
and he has some injury history.
when we talk about what he did at Tennessee on the long ball and covering the long ball, I think this is fantastic. I mean, he played a lot of different positions at Tennessee. They drafted him as an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
The guy's versatile. He can play all over. He played safety, played corner. The Jalen Reeves-Maven, I truly love and know as a corner, but it'll be interesting to see where they put him at. I think
Mm-hmm.
one guy though that I really we just can't like move on to the next team without bringing him up is Brad Kaya.
Yeah. I remember you text me every 20 minutes or a half hour. Brad Kai's on the board. Brad Kai's on the board.
I was big.
I was like, wow, Brad Kaya, who was once a potential first overall pick in this draft class.
Wasn't he on the five? They had like five up there. They said Deshaun Watson. They said Brad Kaya. They threw Nate Peterman up there too.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely threw in Mitch Trubisky.
Mitch Trubisky was always up there.
Yeah.
Webb Davis was thrown in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
Davis, yeah.
all these guys. Patrick Mahomes was thrown in there.
really wasn't brought up till like 3 weeks before the draft.
And then
though.
Deshaun Kaiser even got a little bit of buzz, and Brad Kaya was getting buzz, but in the 6th round, Mike, you gotta shake your head a little bit. Is it just because he didn't fit these teams' needs, or is there something more that we don't know about Brad Kaya?
I guess there has to be something more that we don't know about him, but I mean, I think it's a good fit in Lions because really he's not going to walk into Detroit. At least I hope he doesn't think he's going to walk in there. He's going to take the starting position from Matt Stafford because I think Matt Stafford is a top 7, quarterback in his league. So I think he's going to be holding the clipboard for a while. And I mean, hey, if Matt Stafford gets hurt, he's going to come in, but I think that's really his role there. But I mean, I like to pick as a backup. I mean, it's always a good draft. It's always good to draft a quarterback, see if you can develop him to a backup. Hey, who knows? He can become really good. And I mean, unlike Mike Lennon, who the Buccaneers couldn't trade away for anything, get signed to a big deal, maybe they can flip him for a couple picks. Maybe get like a 4th round pick for him.
Right.
Who knows? I mean, you never know.
And I mean, listen, it's totally different. And we emphasize this: the ACC is not as strong defensively as the SEC, but he does have 150.3
it's
passer
still stronger
rating.
defensively than the Pac-12.
Right. And 27 touchdowns on the year, over 3,500 yards, 6'3", 7'8", 214 pounds. Guys, listen, I don't know. Like when he entered the draft, I was all for it, but now that it's all said and done, him would have been a senior this year at the U. I mean, maybe he should have stayed back here, but it's a man's personal decision. Like you said, Mike, I don't see him really holding much else than the clipboard this season. But one team that we really, and we save him for last because there's a reason we save him for last. One team that really balled out in a year where, frankly, they didn't even need the ball out, but they just did because they are the Green Bay Packers, and they're the team we saved for last. One pick I want to focus in on, Mike, and we're going to talk about this one because we both love Washington secondary, apparently. The 2nd round, picking up Kevin King.
Yeah, started off day 2, right? Picking up Kevin King because we all know how the Packers can throw the heck out of the ball, and we all know how there was nobody on that team that could defend the pass last year besides Micah Hyde, who's really no better than a special teams player on an average to above average football team. So I think cornerback definitely need to be addressed.
Right.
Safety definitely needed to be addressed. And I like how they did that with their first 2 picks. I like how, they're big on Kevin King. I was reading up a lot, Kevin King, the Packers, seems like a marriage that's definitely going to happen. And I think they were smart, seeing how the board was unfolding because, all the run-on offensive players in the top, the top like 13 picks, the cornerbacks were sliding down a couple slots. Marshawn Lattimore falls down to 11 and stuff. They were smart. They traded back at a couple times, picked up some picks, got a lot of bulk in the later rounds, picked up an extra 4th, picked up an extra 5th, picked up an extra 7th, all that stuff. And they still get their guy in Kevin King to start off day 2. So I really think that was a good pick by them.
Yeah.
Because they needed something because he's definitely by far their number 1 cornerback right now.
And I think it was funny.
Fields.
It's funny. There's a saying that goes, "It's how you start and it's how you finish." And I think it's how they start and how they finish. Picking up Malachi Dupree, wide receiver at LSU, who slipped up a lot in this draft, way back.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
obviously, Mike, I think there's a reason. Maybe there's something we don't know about the guy, but he still played at LSU and he was a wide receiver. And we've learned that wide receivers from LSU can be good. I mean,
from time to time, they're pretty solid.
Let me ask you, tell my audience out there, ever heard of Jarvis Landry or Odell Beckham Jr.? Well, this guy, Malachi Dupree, has been compared a lot to them, and I'm not saying he is them, but the guy ran a very, very good 40 at the Combine. Didn't have the most flashy season last year, and I'm thinking that's why he got slipped back so far. So,
and he was the number 1 wide receiver recruit coming out of this high school draft class. And here's the thing: I mean, LSU, they had the Leonard Fournette. They have Leonard Fournette. So you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna run the ball the whole time. And you know what else? They didn't have a quarterback to throw the ball at the same time.
Right.
So I mean, this is why he fell to the 7th round. I really think that's a steal. They got him 3 picks above Mr. Irrelevant. I think that's a really good pick by the Packers, who. Really, you got Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't need a lot of separation. While, yes, he's not that fast. He showed in the Combine he's not too fast. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. He can put the ball where you want it. All you need is to have a step on a guy, and Aaron Rodgers to put it there. And Malachi Dupree has shown in LSU he's a very good ball catcher. You know, he can catch the ball, he doesn't drop it a lot. And I think he could be very good because guess who his quarterback is? Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you can't go wrong when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback.
And one last guy we're going to focus on, then we're going to move it down to the AFC North, is this running back position. I really wanted them to address the running back position, and I think that
did they address the running back position?
I think
they addressed it.
I think it says a lot about this young man Jamal Williams at BYU, because they could have taken a lot. They could have really gone in depth here. They really could have gotten a talented, skill-worthy guy, but they picked up Jamal Williams at a BYU, who a lot of people don't know is a very, very talented and strong, very aggressive running back, and I think this will fit him well. Right now, as of now, on the depth chart, it shows Ty Montgomery as their running back, who's
not a running back.
So I think this is good that they address this.
Yeah,
also getting Devontae Mays, running back out of Utah State. But, Mike, I don't know if you know too much about this young man, Mr. Williams, but do you agree with them taking the middle of the pack, or do you think maybe they should have gone second pick overall, try to get a more caliber running back?
Honestly, I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, so it's not like you need great offensive players to have a great offense because Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. I'll just keep saying it. But I think they just need to go secondary. Their secondary is so bad off, they just had to go secondary, or they're honestly screwed, really, in my opinion.
Well, I mean overall, this is a tough one, but I think the winners here, overall, I think the Minnesota Vikings. I think they addressed a lot in their situation.
I'm gonna go with the Lions because I like that Gerard Davis pick and tease Tibor while everybody's knocking him on his bad combine grades. I'll just keep saying it again. You don't play football in tights.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, he's a little bit slower. But if you look at that defense, Darius Slay Jr. isn't the biggest athlete, but they're more of a zone defense where he's very good with his hands. He's very physical, and he's a big cornerback. I mean, he's not that athletic, but I think he fits the scheme really well, and I think he's the best player they really picked up, and I think they just got a lot of bang for their buck if you look down the line in their draft picks.
Well, that's enough of the NFC North. I think we tore up the Bears real well. I think we, as per usual, glorified the Packers.
What the hell are the Bears doing?
We'll move on. There's a lot more to be said on the topic. I'd like to keep throwing them under the bus, but there's one team that I really do want to throw under the bus right now, and hope you packed all your carry-ons, because we're taking a flight down to Cincinnati right now. We're going to go to the AFC North, where it's still a little bit cold.
Who goes on a flight to Cincinnati?
I don't know, Geeds. So, essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to break down the AFC North, and then I'm sure, as you probably caught the trend so far on the show, then we're going to take you out to the AFC East, finish it off with the NFC East appropriately here, being in Philadelphia. We'll close it out with the best. So, first team I want to focus on, the AFC North, and we're not going to focus with the overall number one. I'm going to focus on the Cincinnati Bengals. And I want to say something about the Cincinnati Bengals. I like the fact that they picked up John Ross in the first round, even though a lot of people would disagree with me. I think it's great.
I think it's a great pick, too.
I think it's great.
9.
I just think number 9, and also I think Joe Mixon. I think those first 2 picks, I think the rest of the draft was quite solid. I like Jordan Evans, inside linebacker out of Oklahoma. I like J.D. Dillman, center out of Utah. I like Jake Elliott.
I like how they got a Memphis kicker,
Right.
That's what I say. They got a Memphis kicker, Steve Gostkowski, so they need a kicker.
Oh, and I love Carl Lawson, and of course I love Josh Malone out of Tennessee coming with the 4th round pick, but I think it was great that they addressed the offensive needs. I actually think they're looking fantastic on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, they had a plethora of picks, and they covered it all with taking 2 wide receivers, two edge rushers, taking a running back, and the running back in Joe Mixon, while he is very talented, and there's a lot of off-field concerns, and rightfully so. I mean, the man hit a couple women, so we all know that's there. But the Cincinnati Bengals, out of all teams that would draft Joe Mixon, if the only team I think that would have been the worst team for him to go to, he went to, the Cincinnati Bengals. You want to know why the Cincinnati Bengals are not a good fit for him?
You have Jeremy Hill.
I mean, yeah, not only do you have Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard, I'm not even talking about the football field fit right now. I'm just talking about how every other person on that defense gets arrested.
Right.
So, I mean, you already have Adam Pac-Man Jones, Vontez Burfict. You already have all those players with all field issues, and Joe Mixon goes to the Bengals where, honestly, Marvin Lewis, yeah, he might be a good football coach, but it looks like he doesn't have any control over that locker room at the end of the day.
Or
really
any control of the performance and the late game discipline in these playoff games.
Exactly, and I mean, and you just brought it up. You have Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard.
Yeah.
Why do you need Joe
2
Mixon?
great power, big, solid, firm backs. Can run the ball too, get off the edge, bounce off.
Exactly, and Gio Bernard is a very good receiver out of the backfield like Joe Mixon. So I'm just confused where they're going here because if I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I'm happy, with A.J. Green. You just take John Ross in the first round. You got Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard as your running backs. I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty happy with our offense.
Right.
Why are you going Joe Mixon in the second round? That's the only thing
Right.
I'm confused of. Like, you have two pretty solid running backs who, by committee, is pretty good. In the beginning of the year, you're gonna throw the ball over the field with Gio Bernard when it's
Right.
warm. And as soon as it gets colder, playoff time, you need to punch someone in the face. You're gonna give it to Jeremy Hill because he's that downhill back that shows some athleticism and he's pretty good.
Right.
I just don't understand where Joe Mixon comes into play.
And also, it was interesting to me that they took a tight end in the very last round out of Buffalo because Tyler Eifert's your tight end. It's one name we did not mention at all right there. Tyler Eifert's your tight end. And Mike, I'm going to emphasize what you just said. Like, there is no reason to get a running back. There's no reason to get
Especially
a receiver.
in the second round. Like,
in the
there's
second
no reason.
round. And
Especially one with baggage like Joe Mixon.
I know I like John Ross. Like we could talk a lot about John Ross, but he would fit in a lot better in a team that needs a wide receiver like Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And when they drafted him first overall, I got to agree with you, Mike. I just don't think him and Joe Mixon going those first two. I
think John Ross is talent, but 9th overall. I mean, we're sitting here, we're thinking John Ross is going to fall to the late first round because there's going to be a huge defensive board because it's a defensive talented draft. But here he goes. We got 3 receivers going in 10th overall and is rounded out with John Ross going at 9.
And there was a huge unaddressing of the secondary, by the way. Only one secondary player was drafted, a name that we know way too familiar, Brandon Wilson, the cornerback out of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at the depth chart and I look at the overall cornerback position, in this division, when you're playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you have Antonio Brown and you have Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell on that offense, you're gonna need defense. You're gonna need guys. I still like Adam Jones and Dre Kirkpatrick if they can both stay out of trouble. Vontae's perfect if he can stay out of trouble.
Exactly.
But here's where we get to the point, Mike. If they can stay out of trouble, and when we talk about the strong safety position, I don't see too much depth here at the strong safety position whatsoever right now. We talk about Georgia Logan. We talk about Sean Williams. I mean, I just think you should have addressed that. I think that, honestly, if I could replace one pick with that Joe Mixon pick with the second round pick, I would get a secondary player. And
I mean, definitely you had an early second round pick, so you still had to run that.
Who was available at that point? Was Tre'Davious still available?
Tre'Davious White, no, he got taken in the first round.
It was a late pick, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he was 28th overall, if I'm not mistaken. Sidney Jones got picked a couple picks before that, but I think Tease Tabor might have been available. 16th overall pick in the second round. I think a couple of those guys were available,
right.
But I just don't understand the Joe Mixon pick. That's really the only knock I have on the Bengals because I feel like they had a plethora of picks, so they just collected players. They were just going around. They're just picking players. They just brought them all in. They're going to be fine out of plethora of picks. My big problem is taking John Ross ninth overall and Joe Mixon in the second round. Really.
I'll tell you one team that does make a lot of sense, though. One team I was actually quite satisfied with. No one's talking about it. Is I think the Baltimore Ravens had themselves a very good draft.
They always have themselves a very good draft.
Very good.
I mean, Ozzie Newsome over there. I mean, he's one of the best when it comes to it. He really is. And I mean, Marlon Humphrey in the first round. I mean, cornerbacks out of Alabama lately have been, underwhelming. We'll look at names like D. Milner, Dre Kirkpatrick, still trying to find his way to be, an all-pro cornerback as he once touted was. All them players. I mean, we just had Landon Collins and, Clinton Dix come out of Alabama and start reversing the trend. So Marlon Humphrey, I think, can be really good. The name I really like in this draft class, and we know him well. Another Houston product, Tyus Bowser.
Right.
Great name, by the way, Tyus Bowser.
I like it a lot. The outside linebacker position.
I mean, he can drop back in coverage, but his number one thing is he can get to the passer, and I mean not to the passer. He can get to the quarterback. And in a 3-4 defense, and him being an outside linebacker, when you're just saying we're taking the leash off, you just go run and just go kill the princess because your last name's Bowser. I mean, I think it can be a really good fit, and I think it's a good situation for him, really.
Well, everyone knows in order to kill the Princess Peach, you have to have your partner in crime, and Terrell Suggs is a great partner in crime.
Terrell Suggs is a great partner in crime to have.
And let's not talk about who else they got here. Can I get a Roll Tide? Roll Tide at the same time.
Yeah.
C.J. Mosley and the inside linebacker Tim Williams, a very Alabama-themed inside.
I mean, the Ravens know defense, and they know defense because they have a lot of Alabama products on their defense. I mean they know how to draft, and it's just a thing like we were saying earlier with the Chiefs. We trust them because Andy Reid. Well, I trust the Ravens because Ozzie Newsome, and he just furthered my trust by snagging Tyus Bowser in the second round, snagging a half right there. Marlon Humphrey is a solid pick. And why not? We'll just keep adding to the list of Michigan people. Chris Wormley.
Another
the tackle.
snag. It's funny.
No, I
You
mean, another
transition from snag to
yeah,
snag.
Exactly.
Literally.
We're just piling on the Michigan people and Alabama people while we're at it too. So I mean, I just really like what they did. They really didn't go a lot of offense, which I'm kind of confused with because their offense their offense really has never been that good. But they went with some offensive line. They couldn't run the ball last year nor pass the ball last year because no one could block for them really. And they're really their biggest offensive threat last year besides Steve Smith was their fullback. So I was kind of wondering why they didn't go a little bit more offense. That's the only problem I have with this draft, though.
And one position that wasn't necessary, but I'm surprised they didn't address at least late in the draft was the running back position.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting.
In this draft class.
I think it's interesting. I don't see Terrence West really being a set guy. Obviously, they just brought in Danny Woodhead, but Danny Woodhead's like a 2-down back. He's like kind of a screen guy, short yardage. He's not long yardage.
Put him between the tackles.
Nah, he's short yardage. He's a bouncy guy. So I think it's interesting that they didn't address that. Like you said, Mike. As far as their receiving core goes right now, obviously you have Dennis Pitta, you have Mike Wallace, but I don't know if I like Perriman on that outside receiver position. I
like Perriman. He just can't stay healthy. I mean,
exactly, and I think that's exactly the issue. I think that spot would have been cemented for John Ross if he was still available.
He's 6'2", and he's thick. He's like 220, and he runs 4.3, 40 speeds. I mean, he's good. He just can't stay healthy. He had a big injury at PCL his first year.
And I mean, Dennis Pitta too. Obviously, is 238-pound guy, 6'4". He's solid every year. He's probably one of the most consistent receivers Baltimore has at the moment.
Yeah, and Mike Wallace really hasn't been an all-pro receiver we all know and love for the past couple of years. So really some question marks. They still come out with question marks on the offense, but if you look at years past, I mean, when have the Ravens never had question marks on their offense? I mean, they always do. So it's a thing we should get used to. They're gonna have question marks on their offense. But with the question marks on their defense, we'll just get on their offense, we'll just get the answer with their defense by just looking at it. I mean, jeez, their defense is insane. Like, I mean, they just added Marlon Humphrey and Tyus Bowser and everything. They still got Terrell Suggs to go with it. I mean, Eric Weddle, we all know a lot of Jimmy Smith. I mean, they just have a good defense. That's what we know we're going to get with the Ravens. We might not get a great offense, but we're sure as heck going to get a good defense that's going to be nasty and play every night.
Right. And speaking of question marks, I want to shift it to another team of this division, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the first question mark being Ben Roethlisberger and how much he has left in him. I thought it was quite interesting that they drafted Josh Dobbs in the 4th round.
He's the predecessor. Hey, same exact pick as Dak Prescott last year. So hey.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I'm a Tennessee fan, but I did not think Josh Dobbs had it in him to be a pro caliber quarterback. I think it's interesting that they snagged him up. Also, I think it's very touching, very inspiring, and I think it's a very great pick with getting James Conner at the running back. Incredible what that young man's overcome, and to see him.
Oh, yeah,
he ain't even got to move locker rooms. He's just got to walk right down the hall, move all this stuff down the hall.
Exactly, and he's going to work out in the same building and everything, work out in the same vicinity, and it's not like he's going in. He has to be number one guy. He's going to get the workload because you haven't named Le'Veon Bell there. All really James Conner has to do is just play the first 3 to 4 games because Le'Veon Bell's going to find a way to get suspended for weed. So James Conner's just going to have to do that or just spell him in because I think Le'Veon Bell has gotten over that fact. But I mean, I really like that pick because it's going to add depth. I like that Cam Sutton pick, cornerback out of Tennessee, really, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Really, I'm surprised he fell to late second round. I honestly thought
solid,
quick.
We like quick guys
beginning
on the
of the year,
show.
We're talking about he's a end first round, beginning of day 2 talent, and he fell a little bit. But I mean, Sammy Coates can't catch a ball. They got a lot of injury questions about it, but the pick that's just insanely good, that's really underrated. We're all talking about this Josh Dobbs, Juju Smith-Schuster, TJ Watt.
Yeah, that's a linebacker.
Some people are saying he could be even better than his brother. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you saying I'm a Wisconsin season ticket holder and I watch every single Wisconsin game, but I watch my fair share of Wisconsin games, and he is not a bad athlete nor football player. And we all know the Steelers are very good at 1, drafting linebackers, 2, developing them, and 3, making them the Pro Bowl caliber. I mean, Bud Dupree's coming along. I mean, all these players. I mean, just T.J. Watt. I think he can be a monster in a Steel City, and I just think that Pittsburgh's linebacker prestige is just going to carry on with this first round pick in T.J. Watt.
I think you said it best. Mike compliments James Harrison, Dupree, Shazier Williams. I think it's great. I think it's a good pickup, and this defense only looks more scary than it did post this draft. They just got Casey Hayward from San Diego. I think that's a good pickup at the cornerback. I think Cam Sutton's solid, can cover the short ball well. which is cool. I mean, you get a lot of secondary players in this draft who can cover the long ball, and that's what you kind of look for. But you need guys who can break up short passes. Cam Sutton's quick, can read a defense very well. I think it's solid. I think also addressing the needs at defensive end, getting a steal out of Western Michigan, Keon Adams right there in the very last round. Had a very solid year in a Western Michigan team that was meant to
very underrated.
Very underrated. He's a big guy, around 300 pounds. So interesting to see what they did. Also, how could we forget why the Cleveland Browns are still Mike.
Wait.
The Cleveland Browns.
Wait, the Cleveland Browns are still in the NFL?
Right.
Oh, we don't have Massimo here, so.
Oh, no.
Too bad. We're still going to talk crap on the Cleveland Browns.
Well, we have to, and there's a very good reason so, because they had a lot of first-round picks, including the first overall. Mike, I'm going to let you take this one off on the bat. You agree with this Myles Garrett pick at number 1 overall, but do you agree with the rest of the picks being the whole Caleb Brantley pickup with the off-field issues, Howard Wilson, Deshaun Kaiser, David Njoku, Jabril Peppers, the whole Toucan, Sam, Captain Crunch, and the whole damn bunch? What do you think of it, Mike?
My favorite pick is the Caleb Brantley pick, though, because, I mean, you can't go wrong with SEC defensive players, and, Florida, he was coached by Jeff Collins, shout out Temple real quick. But he had a day 2 grade on him, and he falls all the way to the first pick of the 6th round.
Right.
So if I'm the Cleveland Browns sitting here, well, we went 1-15. Yes, we're very bad. Is Deshaun Kaiser the answer for franchise quarterback? Probably not, because we're the Cleveland Browns. Well, let's just get the best player on the board in Caleb Brantley, and that was a very smart pick. Yes, he has all-field issues, but at the end of the day, it matters how you play in the field. It doesn't matter what you do off the field. So I really like that pick. I like the David Njoku pick out of Miami. Brad Kai's favorite target. I like that because, frankly, Jordan Cameron isn't that good. And I like the Jabril Peppers pick because their defense is so bad, just anything's an upgrade. So I think the versatility brings, and the Josh Cribbs. Remember Josh Cribbs? With the Cleveland Browns. Remember the whole Josh Cribbs, explosive special teams returner. I think Jabril Peppers can bring that back to the city of Cleveland. So I think it's one of my more favorite Browns drafts out of the last couple of years. But I mean, it's the Browns draft at the end of the day.
Josh MTV Cribbs.
Hey, he announced a pick for the Cleveland Browns
wow.
on I believe it was day 2. He announced one of the picks. I was like, yes, they brought Josh Cribbs and announced a pick. I mean, he can't speak right, but it was great.
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Mike. The only thing that kind of shocked me a little bit was the Browns getting Jabril Peppers. We'll see where he ends up, because he's versatile. So
see what they do with him.
See what they do. But let's go to the offense and let's talk about right now where they stand. Listen. As of now, you got 3 guys. Well, you actually got a lot of guys, but I'll just start with...
you probably have like 5.
I'll talk about the first 3 you got on the board right now for quarterback. You got Kevin Hogan out of Stanford, you got Brock Osweiler, and you have Cody Kessler out of USC. Out of all these 3 and Deshaun Kaiser, if I want one guy in here right now, I'm going to pick Brock Osweiler, and I'm only going to pick Brock Osweiler because he has more experience. He seems to perform better, but he doesn't always perform better than the other 3. So I think as of now, Deshaun Kaiser will function as Brad Kai. He will hold the clipboard. He will learn. Hopefully, he will develop. I like the young man. I like the confidence.
He has talent.
I think he has a lot of talent. Gruden definitely had a lot of great things to say at him. Gruden knowing a lot about the quarterback position. And when I look at this tight end position, Gary Barnidge obviously just got released. And listen, we bring in David Njoku out of Miami. I think he's solid. I think he's a very, very strong young man. Can function as a Rob Gronkowski. I like Kenny Britt on the wide receiver position. And I like Corey Coleman. And listen, the running back position is such a question mark, and I think that was one of my biggest disappointments right now with what Cleveland did in this draft. They addressed the running back position so late when I feel as if, Mike, and you can disagree with me, agree or disagree, but you're coming off a 1-15 season. There obviously was not a lot of offensive productivity, and you can see that a lot of that stemmed from the running back position, but also a lot of it stemmed from the quarterback. The quarterback position is still going to be a question mark regardless because that's just where Cleveland stands. That's how some NFL teams see it, and that's all they can do. I don't like how they took Jabril Peppers here over a running back, and I think that's just something I stand by firmly.
Because I think Dalvin Cook would have looked pretty good in the
I think
uniform,
Dalvin Cook would have been great, and that's the issue there. But
or cornerback.
Overall, listen, you came off a 1-15 season, and I think you addressed a lot of great needs. And I think if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you can be quite happy, and I think you can be quite happy with...
And especially coming away with 3 first-round draft picks. I mean, while, yes, there might be question marks about Jabril Peppers and how much of an impact David Njoku can make with no quarterback, but you still got 3 first-round picks and perceived 3 first-round talents. I mean, can do something with that.
Right.
Really can.
And I think overall, when it's all said and done, maybe one day the Browns can win the division, but at the same time,
Maybe one day we can all pray and hope we see
at
the
the
Browns
same
in the
time,
playoffs
though,
one time.
it's a long, gradual process, and you just got to digest that right now in Cleveland. Overall, though, good job, Cleveland. You really didn't disappoint us this year, and you got to feel good for this franchise. They've gone through a lot.
It is better than Johnny Manziel at 20 overall.
Right.
It is a lot better
Right.
than that. So.
And I think overall good addressing. Like you said, Mike, we'll see how much impact these players have. But
who won the draft who won the draft in this division in your opinion?
Ooh, when I look at it all together, the Baltimore Ravens definitely addressing
it's just,
everything.
Yeah, I agree with you because
I think they won.
I think it's just prestige, the value they got. I mean, it's the Ravens, so they're going to draft.
You can disagree with me here, but I think the Bengals are your losers. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too because I really think you reached on your first two picks, really, in my opinion, and your first two picks are always your most important because your first two picks are the ones that are supposed to work out and the rest are just crapshoots. So I really think they reached on their first two picks, which is a big problem if you want to be good.
Right. Well, that's all we have to say for the north side. We're about to take you to the east side where me and Mike represent, where
everything's better.
And we're about to talk about the AFC East, my personal favorite division. A lot to come, folks. You may not want to leave at the same time, though. I'm going to emphasize this. Hydrate. I know you're not drinking a bunch of water. That's only your second glass. By now, you should be on about your sixth. So let's step it up a little bit.
Let's go.
We'll be back with more. And we're back here on the first line on the final episode of the 2017 school year, and we're going to pick up right where we left off, Mike. It has been one central topic from the start, and it's one central topic now. It's football, and we know you love football. We love football. I know, Mike.
We love football. I think you guys get the point.
And I think we're going to show you guys why we love football even more because we're about to talk about one of my favorite divisions. Mike and I are about to get very animated. Buckle up. Make sure to fasten your seatbelt or that alarm will keep going off, the one that annoys the heck out of you until you fasten that seatbelt. So make sure you get that done. Like I said, if you don't have your favorite throwback jersey on right now, that should have been on by now. That was in the dress code, incited in the field trip form, in the permission slip that your parents were supposed to sign.
But, and we'll just say it again, hydrate.
And hydrate, 100%. It's hot out here, man. We're working, and we're about to work even more because we're going to start it off here. AFC East, first team we're going to look at is the Buffalo Bills. Mike, we're going to start it out here with the Buffalo Bills. When I look at them right now, they only had about 6 draft picks, including Nate Peterman out of Pittsburgh with that 5th-round pick here. Overall, Mike, I want to talk a lot about this team because they got our guy Deion Dawkins in the 2nd round, the offensive guard.
T for Temple,
baby. They got 2, and I want to say 2 extremely talented steals in their first 2 picks, in Tre'Davious White and Zay Jones out of East Carolina. Mike, I want to start off. You love Tre'Davious White.
I love Tre'Davious White.
So I'm going to hand you the mic. I'm going to go get some Wendy's.
All right.
What do you want? Do you want a
4 for 4?
A 4 for 4.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to get 2 4 for 4s. Mike, here you go. I'm going to give you the mic. Tre'Davious White, what do you think of him?
Well, he went to LSU, that's 1, and he plays cornerback, that's 2. Combine those 2 together, you get an NFL player right off the bat. I mean, if you go to LSU and you play in the secondary, you're good. I mean, there's no questions asked. I mean, just look at the prestige. I mean, you got Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson. I mean, Jalen Mills is a 6th-round pick, but, he's very good. And Tre'Davious White is going to be very good. This list goes on and on, but we don't have all the time in the world. So, I mean, Tre'Davious White at 27, I thought he was going to fall into the 2nd round. But with all the offense flying off the board so early, I think it was only right for him to go in the 1st round because, after around pick 20, it's just going to be defense. And it was that. But I just like Tre'Davious White because he's big. He wore the famous number 18 for LSU. He can return kicks for you. He can return punts for you. He's a ball hog. He's physical. And I'll repeat it again. He went to LSU and he played cornerback. I mean, there's nothing wrong to get there. And Zay Jones, a person who just shot up the draft board, in the final month and a half, who's really a really good receiver out of East Carolina. I saw him play against Temple, and he was pretty much the only person worth noticing on their offense, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm pretty sure he leads East Carolina in all-time receptions and yards and their program history, if I'm not mistaken. He's a really good pick. And we'll go late 2nd round. Deion Dawkins, or dude out of Temple. I mean, by far our best offensive lineman. He's a good quality pick at the end of the 2nd round. There's nothing you can go wrong there. And if I'm just gonna keep going down the line while Taylor's coming back with his Wendy's, I'm gonna go with Nathan Peterman. 5th round at a quarterback out of Pittsburgh. I really like that because while Tyrod Taylor isn't as bad as we all think, you get a prototypical quarterback, you get a pro style quarterback who's gonna come in. He's not gonna start day one. I think that's a fact. You still got a lot of money and a lot of years tied up with Tyrod Taylor. You're on an offense that runs the ball and does nothing but run the ball, and it's just proof because you got LaShawn McCoy, so you better do nothing but run the ball. So I think he's in a very good spot, and I think he can excel.
Right. Mike, they didn't have any barbecue sauce.
That's cool.
I got
sweet and
you
sour guy
honey.
anyway.
I got honey mustard.
All right, let's just talk about the
Oh,
draft.
this is your Coke, by the way. Here you go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can just eat. I'll finish this one off.
All right.
All right. So now that I'm back, I want to talk about the outside linebacker out of Boston College, the senior, 6 foot, 223 pounds, Matt Milano. I like this steal a lot, and I want to say I like this steal. Let me emphasize, because I think they get a very solid, very aggressive guy, and I like him at the outside linebacker position here for the Buffalo Bills. When we talk about this team right now, a huge question mark, and I mean huge question mark right now is defense. With Stephon Gilmore departing for New England, you kind of lose that spark right there because that's kind of your guy. And you obviously, you still have James Hedwig and another former Patriot at the strong safety position. But I like how they address this here. They bring in a guy to help, complement Ragland. I like this a lot. Reggie Ragland's a very solid, talented player. They got a guy to complement Lorenzo Alexander. I think he's extremely solid. Boston College, obviously not the strongest program in years past, but they had a somewhat decent year in comparison to years past. And like I said, this guy can be developed well. He ran a 4.67 at the combine, had 55 tackles in his career, 1 interception, averaged about 6 sacks on the season. So I think this is solid, and I think it's an underlooked one. I see this guy developing well just based off it's hard to explain, but I think just based off the way he plays and the way you watch him, the way he brings it, and how quick he is for the size he is. I think it's a very overlooked one from BC. Shout out Chestnut Hill, all my family up there in Chestnut Hill. So I think this is great for him. And I think overall the Buffalo Bills did a good job. And another team that I also think, did a pretty good job in the draft themselves was the Miami Dolphins right now. And I think I really like this pick overall with Charles Harris, outside linebacker out of Missouri. I talked him up a lot on the show, Mike. But there's one guy I want to ask you something about, Mike, and he's a cornerback at Clemson. You may not know too much about him. It's okay if you don't. Cordray Tankersley.
Oh, I know a little bit about him.
A little bit about him.
Okay. I know that he played in 2 national championship games, and
Right.
I know that he won a national championship, and I know that he played on a well-coached, a well-developed, and a very highly efficient Clemson defense.
Right.
So I like him, and in the 3rd round, I really don't think there's a better value pick in not only this division but in the draft than Cordray Tankersley in the 3rd round. I mean, he's 6'1", and he's 200 pounds, but, I mean, yeah, he only had 3 interceptions his whole career, but he really showed spurts. I mean, he ran a 4.4. That's pretty fast for a cornerback. That's pretty solid for a cornerback. And I think for a team that, you have a Chip Kelly failed experience at Byron Maxwell on your team, I really think that this is a good value pick in the 3rd round. I like that pick a lot. And another pick I like is Isaiah Ford in the 7th round.
Right.
I mean, I remember watching them Virginia Tech games when they were trying to upset Ohio State. I remember watching them the year after they upset Ohio State. Isaiah Ford was a big factor in that game, and Isaiah Ford was a big factor his whole career at Virginia Tech. And I think in the 7th round, I think that is a very, very good pick to pair up, with Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry. I'm pretty sure he's got Julius Thomas. I mean, this is a very good offense, and they just add a little bit in the 7th round with Isaiah Ford. So, honestly, I think that's their best draft pick, Isaiah Ford in the 7th round, if you ask me.
And snagging up Vincent Taylor in the 6th round at Oklahoma State, a defensive tackle, 44 tackles in his career, averaged 6.5 sacks a season. Very fit. I like this because the Dolphins said, you know what? At our current state, we could go for flashy, big-name guys, but we need guys who are going to develop well because as of now, we already have the young talent. We're a very young team, and I think that, we can bring in this flashy new young guy, but at the same time, I think they looked past that and they saw the bigger picture, and I like what they did. I think this is great for them, but one team I didn't really like at all, actually, in this draft, despite the way they started out this draft so strong, was the New York Jets.
I mean, they're not good in the first place.
No. Well,
My fries were kind of cold, but they weren't worse than the Jets. So.
Mike's fries were colder than the Jets.
Nah.
Wow.
But they're still not worse than the Jets.
Wow.
I rather eat them cold.
I'd rather eat
eat
Jets
cold
fries
than watch the Jets play football. You want to know why? Because their quarterback is looking like it's going to be Christian Hackenberg.
Right.
And while yes, Christian Hackenberg wasn't bad at Penn State, he has a lot of talent.
Right.
He has a lot of potential. I just don't think he's going to reach that potential with the New York Jets.
Right.
I just don't, especially when your number one receiver is. Number one receiver is Eric Decker. You just lost your 1A and Brandon Marshall. Yes, you did. You did address the position by getting Darius Stewart out of Alabama and Chad Henson out of Cal, but are they really that good because they're Darius Stewart? Well, his name just got really popular in the last couple weeks coming up to the draft. I feel like he could have gone better with maybe even D.D. Westbrook,
Right.
in my opinion. So I just don't see how their offense is set up for this success. I like how they went, two safeties in the first 2 rounds because Calvin Pryor doesn't deserve to wear an NFL uniform anymore.
Right.
He was a first-round bust, and I think Jamal Adams was a can't-miss safety prospect. I think that was fair to say, and if you fell to the Jets, I think the Jets were very, very smart in taking him in the first round. So they started out strong. The finish was very, very questionable, in my opinion.
100%.
So I really jury's still out, but I like the Jamal Adams pick. I feel like that's definitely by far their best pick. He has to perform. He was their 6th overall pick, and I think he will perform because say it again, he went to LSU and he plays in the secondary. So
I think the fry metaphor describes it perfectly. If we're talking fries here, the rest of this division would be Chicky Pete's, and the New York Jets would be Burger King fries.
Oh,
I mean,
exactly.
it's totally understandable right now. I mean, with just everything that's going on, they don't have no idea who their quarterback is, and I thought for sure they would get Chad Kelly. I kept texting you during that draft.
I
and
thought
said,
they would just draft a quarterback
anyone,
in general.
Anyone. I mean, even just out of UPenn, the UPenn quarterback. I thought they were
maybe
going to snag up.
they could have even signed PJ Walker as an undrafted free agent. They could have done.
Except the Colts got
anything. Yeah, the Colts got him.
Okay.
I mean, hey, PJ Walker had a couple.
Hey,
rings
good
in
for him though,
yeah.
man. He's on the Colts now. He's an NFL player for now. Hopefully, he makes the team. But we'll get to him later. That's at the end. Like I said, Mike. There's only one pick here where I'm like, yes, good job, and it's Jamal Adams. It's the very first pick, safety out of LSU.
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
And
go wrong with
you
that
just
pick.
talked up LSU secondary. I agree 100%. I think LSU secondary translates well to the NFL, and I think Jamal Adams looks well in the New York Jets uniform. But lack of addressing to the quarterback position is really the standout here, Mike. And I think they're definitely the losers without a doubt in this division.
Yeah, 100%.
And they're the losers in general.
Yeah, they always are losers.
So
they're the New York Jets.
If we were on World Star, Mike. Right now, what just happened is the guy just jumped up off the lunch table. You ever seen that video where the kids?
Oh
would you step on or would you slap your friend for like $1 million? Those videos that go viral. If you could slap like the New York Jets for $1 million, like the rest of the AFC East would be winding up. Like
winding up. Yeah, speaking of the rest of the AFC East and the Chickies and Pete's metaphor, we'll just go with the cream of crop, crusty, crunchy Chicky and Pete's fries. We'll just talk about the New England Patriots for a second. Well, yes, they only had 4 picks, and they didn't start picking until the 3rd round because they traded away all their picks. At the end of the day, what do you need if you're sitting here? I mean, I know you're a New England Patriots fan, so I'm going to ask you, sitting going into draft day, what were you trying to get? What was your goal coming out of draft day?
When I looked at this team, like I said, we had a lot of room to work. We could be flexible. I think one thing I did want to look at was the defensive end position. Obviously, Chris Long just going to the Eagles this year. Brown on the defensive tackle position. AJ Branch on the defensive tackle, Gerard Sheard, like all these players, Hightower at the linebacker. I definitely wanted to see a little bit more defensive because, like I said, after this next year, New England has a lot of contracts coming up. So I think it was quite appropriate that they went with the outside linebacker with the first overall, or not first overall, their first overall. Derek Rivers out of Youngstown State. Division I AA player, Youngstown State just played for a Division AA title this year, lost to James Madison in that national championship game. He's very, very big, Derek Rivers. And listen, like when you talk about the front office, you don't really question Robert Kraft at this point. I think he knows what he's doing. So at the 6'3", 248 pounds, 4.61 at the combine, I think it's a great steal. Also, I think another huge steal is Dietrich Wise Jr. out of Arkansas.
Because Arkansas was a very underrated team this year. Very underrated, especially their defense.
And listen, I love Connor McDermott, offensive tackle from UCLA. I love Antonio Garcia, offensive tackle
that's
Troy.
the pick that was making some buzz because, I mean, he really didn't have a great 40, but who cares about a 40 offensive lineman?
And who cares?
But, he's very quick on his feet. That's why I like, and he's a very big guy, and I feel like I mean, you just have Tom Brady just like saying, okay, here are the signals. Here's how you read a defense. I mean,
And
it's going to help.
you need to address the replacement for Nate Solder, who has been in New England for the longest time with him
Yeah.
gone. Now you need to address that, and I think this was the perfect response. You get Antonio Garcia, and listen, at the end of the day, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever play football, and that's just my opinion. But you need an offensive line, and I like Andrews as a center. I like Cannon at the right tackle position, and I loved Nate Solder, but now that he's gone, I think this is the best way you could have addressed him, Mike. Listen, like, as of now, the New England Patriots said there is absolutely no need to get extra. There is no need to overdo this or at the same time underdo it. We have 4 picks. We can trade away. We can work around. We can be strategic. With these 4 picks, let's address the first 2 things that come into our head as far as off season. And the off season, it pointed right to the offensive line. It pointed right to the defensive line. It pointed right to the lines with the loss of players, with the added depth that they needed to really just cement that next Super Bowl title this year. And I think that this was the ultimate pickup here with Antonio Garcia. I think Dietrich Wise Jr. will be fantastic. I think he's very reminiscent of Chris Long earlier in his career. Mm-hmm. He's quick, he's strong, he's physical. So
yeah, and I just think with the whole, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and everybody just running that front office, you can really trust the Patriots in drafting good, especially when they have 4 picks. You're sitting here, and if you as a Patriots fan, I know you're saying, well, next year you're either winning the Super Bowl or the season is a failure.
Yeah.
And, rightfully so. So I think with these 4 picks, I don't know what's going on in front office, but I'm assuming they did extremist amount of scouting to get it right. And when the Patriots are scouting, they're scouting good people, and they know how to scout. So, they only had 4 picks. They didn't have a lot of draft picks, but honestly, in the draft, it's not like you can have 10 draft picks and all 10 of them be good.
Right.
So I'm saying they had 4 draft picks, and I think there's a good chance for, at least 2 or 3 of them to be good and make an impact for, not even doesn't have to be this year, even for the year after, when all the free agents are up, like you're saying.
Right. Well, I think now that we've gone through the division, Mike, who would you say is the winner in this draft of this division?
I would have to say the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Honestly, they only had 6 picks. They didn't have a 3rd or 4th round pick. But I just think with Tre'Davious White going late in the first round, how the board was playing out, I just think that was a smart pick.
Right.
Zay Jones has a lot of potential. He can develop. Deion Dawkins.
Compliment Sammy Watkins, who just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, because I think Sammy Watkins keeps getting hurt because he just has too much pressure on him, maybe. Deion Dawkins, I think, is a solid pick. He's a big guy, like that Nate Peterman pick. I think he can turn into something good. And, hey, they got 2 outside linebackers maybe develop into something.
Right.
So I really like the Bills the most because I feel like they had the most room to improve because they're really not that bad.
Right.
They're a lot better than their 7-9 record says, and I feel like they addressed some key needs in this draft.
I think the losers are, without a doubt, the New York Jets.
And the Jets are always a loser.
I think that's self-explanatory. I think my winner here is going to be the Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
I like Raquan McMillan, inside linebacker out of Ohio State. I like Charles Harris.
That's a very good pick.
I like those first 2. I like stealing Corday out of Clemson, and I like these last 2 picks. I like the way they ended it with Vincent Taylor and Isaiah Ford. Overall, the Dolphins are sprouting up the most out of any team in this division with regards to the Patriots. Patriots are on their own.
And Adam Gase is a great young head coach there, so they're only going to get better.
And
really.
I think the future's bright. I think overall, though.
Yeah, they're as bright as those Aqua uniforms, man, or those all orange Color Rush uniforms.
And I guess that's just my winners. And I guess speaking of winners, we're going to move it to a division that really didn't have a lot of winning records last year. Was one of the weaker divisions, but it is also the last division for a reason because the local Philadelphia Eagles are in this division. We're going to talk about the NFC East, but we're going to save the Eagles for dead last because we know you love your Eagles here in Philadelphia. We're going to start with a local team about 30 minutes down the road from me in Landover, Maryland. We're going to talk about the Washington Redskins, Mike. Overall, with this draft, taking Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle out of Alabama with that first pick, taking Ryan Anderson.
Yeah, doubling down on
so
Alabama.
Apparently, they were in Tuscaloosa the week before.
Yeah, Nick Saban.
So let's get this straight. So Detroit was in Gainesville, and Washington was in Tuscaloosa. So shouldn't that mean that another NFC team should have been in Auburn or in Athens, Georgia at the time?
Who knows, man?
Who knows? But overall, let's talk about the Redskins, Mike. I'm gonna start out by asking you. You talked a lot about this guy a lot. How do you think about the Redskins picking up Samaje Perrier in the 4th round here?
I like it because I going into day 3, I saw Samaje Perine on the board, and I'm thinking the Eagles, I believe, were about 5 picks after the pick for Samaje Perine. They just missed out on the perennial running backs. 2 picks behind Dalvin Cook, all that. But we'll save the Eagles for later. But I like that pick. When I got the alert saying Samaje Perine was drafted to the Redskins, not only I was mad the Eagles couldn't get him, I was mad that he's going to be in our division now. Because if you're looking at the Redskins, I mean, their running backs, Robert Kelly's not getting it done for you. I mean, Matt Jones is nothing special. I think I really like Samaje Perine because he's the all-time leading Oklahoma running back when Oklahoma has a good history of running backs, Adrian Peterson, and we'll just keep going up in years and the list can go on and on. But I really like what they did with Samaje Perine. I mean, I think in any other draft class he's a second or third round talent, but the fact that you can get him in the fourth round was a very, very good look for them. I think that was a quality pick. I mean, I talk a lot about this guy for a reason because I just love Samaje Perine. I just like the way he runs. But I think going 10 picks later, Monte Nicholson to a very underwhelming Michigan State, not only secondary but team. But I think he was one of the better players on the team. And in the fourth round, I think they really needed to address the secondary position. Right. Really the whole defense, because the defense was really inconsistent. I mean, we know that offense will put up 45 points, but that defense was very inconsistent and spotty. So I like that pick by them. Overall, I kind of like the Redskins draft class, even though I'm not a huge Redskins guy, because obviously I'm an Eagles fan. But I really like what they did. I mean, Jonathan Allen falling to them to 17. There was a lot of controversy, whether Jonathan Allen should have went a lot earlier. But I think the reason he fell to 17 because there's something everybody, the normal person's missing. There has to be, because there's no way a man like Jonathan Allen falls to 17th overall, and the Redskins were like, hey, I mean, you just fall to 17th overall, we're going to take advantage of it, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I think obviously, Mike, the Jonathan Allen pick is something we could focus in on, but I'm gonna focus in on Ryan Anderson because we could talk about. We're going to talk about Jonathan Allen and how available he was late in this draft. It was a bit shocking that he fell this late, but I really like Ryan Anderson, the outside linebacker, and I think this complements well because currently right now the Redskins don't have any linebackers or anything on defense.
Yeah, really, they can't stop the run.
I think it's cool, and I think it's cool that they got Samaje Perine, and I agree, Mike. They don't have a running back, but I also don't really agree with how this draft ended. I think that this should have been a very defensive-heavy draft. I think that if they were going to get a wide receiver or a running back, they should have done it with the first two. Because as of right now, I mean, if Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, if he stays in there, then right now Jordan Reed is about all you got, and Josh Doxson. So, and the line's a little banged up. I mean, you can talk about the line a lot. Scherf, Moses, Long, Luavu, Williams. I mean, you name out names, but half of them don't even mean anything because they're all average, not really developed yet. So definitely interesting to look about. We could talk a lot about the Redskins, but one team I really, really want to talk about a lot, Mike, and I know you're gonna agree with me here, is the New York Giants coming off a big offseason. Mike, what did you think about the New York Giants draft here?
Huge offseason. Picking up Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall staying in the same house, just flipping colors. They got him for cheap. I like that. Their first round pick, Evan Ingram. I guarantee sitting there at 23, they're just seeing O.J. Howard slowly slip, and they're probably just rubbing their hands together, just waiting to get him. But the Bucs snagged him, so they went with the next best option. That was Evan Ingram out of Ole Miss, who was a very good vertical threat tight end. He's not a great blocker, but since when have the Giants had a blocking tight end? Never. So I mean, that just goes to show you how much he fits in that system. And I think with Eli Manning at quarterback, I mean, you have Eli Manning at quarterback, and he needs a tight end because I don't think Larry Donnell is one fast enough. 2 can catch the ball. 3 he can't even block, and 4 I don't know if he knows how to run a route. So that being said, they hit it right. I think tight end was low key probably their biggest need, and they addressed that in the first round. And I like how they're trying to get the quarterback for the future. We're talking about how the Cardinals should get a quarterback for the future for Carson Palmer. Well, the Chiefs got a quarterback for the future in Patrick Mahomes, but the Giants waited a little bit, went in the third round with Davis Webb out of California. And I like that because not only do you get possibly a quarterback for the future, but you get a tight end in the first round that maybe he can develop with.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure they'll get to know each other. They're in the same draft class and everything, so it can be good in New York with this draft class that come out. I mean, I really think their defense is good because they spent a lot of money. Reiterate, a lot of money a couple of years back in free agency. With Norris Jenkins and so on and so on. They all turned out to be Pro Bowlers, so there really isn't a huge need and so much on defense, except for just, it's the Giants, so they're just going to keep going pass rushers. That's why they snagged up Avery Ross in the 5th round.
Yeah.
But I think if you're just looking at this draft class, I mean, I think the whole NFC East as a total had a very good draft class, and I think the Giants, fit the bill well because they had a really good draft class themselves.
Yeah, and I think it was a good point that you brought up, Mike. Obviously, drafting a defensive tackle there in the second round, I think that was great for him. You had that extra spark here with JPP still being in the New York Giants uniform. Obviously, Harrison, Vernon, Hankins, Shepard, cornerback position. Landon Collins has really stepped up. Rogers, Camardi. I think Eli Apple didn't really come around.
Yeah,
in New York,
he has to take a step up this year. This year, like Apple has to do something
Yeah.
because they didn't go cornerback, so obviously they have faith in
They
Eli
got faith
Apple
in
and
him.
company. So.
And I think it'll be interesting to see where they go
Mhm.
with this next coming year, obviously with the draft picks they just had. But one team I'm really interested to see where they go coming off the offseason below, and I mean below they just had, coming off a fantastic regular season, is the Dallas Cowboys finishing last season 13-3. Obviously won the NFC East with Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott destroying it on offense. But as of right now, they have very limited cornerbacks, and I think it was quite appropriate that they addressed that, getting Jordan Lewis, quarterback out of Michigan, Joby Awuzie, quarterback out of Boulder, and then Taco Charlton, obviously with that first pick, 28, defensive end out of Michigan. They addressed it too with Xavier Woods. I think this was a good draft for him. I think they got what they were supposed to get. Maybe not the caliber or the talent that they would have wanted, but at the same time, what could they have done? It's not like they were a first 15 pick Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not a huge Dallas Cowboys guy, but I'm because I'm an Eagles fan, but I still think they had a very good draft class. And a pick that really stands out for me, I was very interested to see where he goes, is Ryan Switzer. And it sucks because I'm kind of going to have to hate him now just because he's going to turn right into Cole Beasley.
Right.
And I'm not a huge Cole Beasley guy because he has a star on his helmet. But I mean, if you look at Ryan Switzer and just try to tell me he's not Cole Beasley on steroids, I'm gonna tell you you're dumb because he is. He's very good, and Cole Beasley is getting a little older, and frankly, it's Cole Beasley. I mean, yes, while he's very good, I mean there are better options out there, and I think Ryan Switzer, while right now he might not be the better option Cole Beasley because he has the time he'll groom, playing an NFL offense, yada yada. But I think he can turn into a better Cole Beasley, and I just think just stacks up that receiving core more. I mean, they picked 3 cornerbacks, and this is going to tell me the Cowboys in recent years haven't been that good drafting. And you could be saying, oh, you're an Eagles fan, that's why you're saying it. No, I'm saying this because it's a fact. Look at all their past draft class. I mean, you look at all these people, Randy Gregory, what is he doing? Oh, he's just getting suspended for smoking weed for the 7th time. I mean, they haven't been drafting that good lately. So out of these cornerbacks, I think Chidobe Awuzie is going to be pretty good. Jordan Lewis has some injury history. There's questions about a consistency, but he is from Michigan. But it's only going to be one of these 2 cornerbacks are going to be good, and it's just a fact. It's just the way the draft is. You're not going every single pick is not going to be a hit. But I mean, sitting from a Cowboys standpoint, I mean, you need a pass rusher because God, that front 4 was awful last year. It wasn't even close to good. I mean, if they even have a solid front 4 last year, that they're going to beat the Packers and stuff. But that's always the biggest problem with the Cowboys. They don't have defense, and they addressed it. I mean, they got 2 wide receivers, and the rest is defense. And it's good that the rest was defense because their offense is pretty much fine. I would have liked them to see maybe get a tight end because Jason Witten's doesn't have any more than 2 years left, so they didn't get a tight end. So they need a tight end for the future. That's their only need coming out of this draft class. They just got to hope all these defensive players hit.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because the Eagles obviously took Matt Collins out of North Carolina. They took Ryan Switzer, those 2, the guys that Mitch Trubisky loves so dearly. And I think, like you said, Mike, it's a good piece formatting it. A good complimentary piece to Des Bryant. I really like this Taco Charlton pick. And I'll emphasize that a lot because I like the fact that they addressed the pass rush. I like that they got Joey Ivey, defensive tackle out of Florida, too. Jordan Carroll, a snag way late from Boulder. He was great this year, Marquez White. I like Florida State secondary players altogether, caliber guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's looking up for them. It's all dependent on if this offense can reciprocate what they did last year.
Yeah, and if Taco Charlton can pan out because, a lot of people are saying he can't rush the passer. He's more of a rush defender, and the Cowboys need a rush the passer. So that's the only question with them.
Well, I think we know what time it is. There's a team that I think a lot of people in this city are interested to see how they'll pan out after the big draft they just had in for the first time in their home city. We saved it best for last. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, and I would feel like I would be insulting the United States of America if I started this one off because I know my good friend Mike here is a diehard Eagles fan. So Mike, I'm gonna let you talk for most of this one because you got the knowledge on this one. Mike, obviously, first off, we're gonna start from Derek Barnett all the way down the Quails from Washington, from front to back. What did you like and what didn't you like?
So I'm gonna start off what I didn't like, and Donnell Pumphrey, well, yes, there's no question. I mean, he's an all-time, there's no question in town. He's an all-time leading running back in FBS history when it comes to yardage standpoint and all that. But here's my only thing. I'm looking at this, running back depth chart. I'm looking at Ryan Matthews, who, if he's on the roster when it comes to September, I'm losing faith for the season. Other than that, I'm looking at Wendell Smallwood and Darren Sproles. Then you add Donnell Pumphrey. Two of those are very like, and that's Darren Sproles and Donnell Pumphrey. And the only reason I have faith for his Donnell Pumphrey pick is because one, he has there's nothing he's gonna do besides just take over Darren Sproles' role when Darren Sproles retires after this year. So he's learning from the best. He's just like him. He's just got to bulk up. I mean, he's just in a middle school body. He's just got to add some muscle to him. That's probably the only pick I do not like. I don't. It's not that I hate the pick. It's just I feel like we could have gone a lot better, in my opinion. I feel like maybe we could have went another running back, Marlon Mack or the kids the Chiefs draft Kareem Hunt or whatever. But I feel like he can take over Darren Sproles' role. That's the only problem I have. I wanted to come in this draft and draft a possible 4-down running back, and we didn't. That's the only thing I'm scared of. But other than that, I have no complaints whatsoever about this draft class. I mean, Derek Barnett, production. Well, yes, you passed up on Reuben Foster and Jonathan Allen. Well, Reuben Foster fell for reasons because of injury concerns, and there was a lot of other teams that passed up on him. And Jonathan Allen, he fell for I don't know what reason. But, we're coming in. You're a Tennessee fan, and you put me on a Derek Barnett bandwagon like you did with almost every other Tennessee player, but rightfully so. I mean, the man broke Reggie White's sack record. I mean, tackle for loss record. I mean, the man's good. He's good for a reason. We took him at 14 for a reason. And with the Joe Douglas edition coming from the Ravens front office, I'm liking this draft because I'm looking at the tape and I'm looking at the numbers and I really like it. I look at Sidney Jones. You just look at his tape and his numbers and you're seeing, and he just screams top 15 pick cornerback. He just screams it, but it's unfortunate that he's tore his Achilles. Well, I'm going to give you some good news, Eagles fans. Oh no, his Achilles, the lower part of the Achilles, the thicker tendon, is where the tear is the worst. Well, guess what? He tore it on the upper part where it's a little bit thinner. So it's not as bad, and it wasn't a full tear. So there's a word of encouragement. It can happen. He can be 100%. And if he's 100%, we just drafted 2 top 15 picks in this draft. Then I'm just going to go down the line. Rasul Douglas. Yes, he didn't have a good combine. Well, I'm just going to say it again. You don't play football in tights, America. You play football in pads with helmets and shoulder pads. And guess what he did with helmets and shoulder pads? He led this cornerback draft class at interceptions with 8 interceptions, and he had 8 passes defended, too. This man's good, and he can hit. He's not afraid to hit. Put him in a nickel. As soon as Sidney Jones gets healthy, he can cover a tight end. He can cover slot receivers. I like it. He's physical. He's not small. Then we have Mac Hollins. I'm just breaking it down. He's good. I mean, I believe he was second in yards per catch in the last 3 years since he entered college. He was second. I was above Brashad Perryman. I believe it was around 21.4 yards per catch. Then Donald Pumphrey, you already know my opinion on him. Sheldon Gibson, who's pretty much just a Deshaun Jackson 2.0, just getting drafted in the 5th round and put a West Virginia logo on his helmet. I mean, he's a little bit smaller, but he's fast. I mean, he's really quick. I mean, I really like that pick. He ran a 4.5 40. I mean, it's not as fast as Deshaun Jackson, but he can really take the top of his defense. He has a good first step, and for an explosive West Virginia defense, he was pretty good. I got some friends down in West Virginia who told me they love watching that guy. Then Nathan Gary out of Nebraska. I mean, I'm going to sit here and lie to you, tell you, I'm a season ticket holder for Nebraska Cornhusker football games, and I had the college football ticket pass on Xfinity, but I don't. So Nathan Gary, I mean, I'm reading up about him. He's saying he's slow. He doesn't have range as a good safety, and I mean that's why I was confused why I pick a safety. Then a couple minutes later, I get the alert we're going to convert him to linebacker, and it makes sense. I mean he's slow. He doesn't have that much range, and God's sakes, Michael Kendricks needs one to get off this roster, and 2 needs to get out of NFL and go to either the AFL or CFL because he's not that good. So I think Nathan Gary can maybe be an eventual replacement for him. But Elijah Qualls is a name I'm very interested in because we just hit on a 6th-round defensive tackle in Bo Allen a couple years ago. And Elijah Qualls can be that and probably even take Bo Allen's spot. One, we just traded for Timmy Jerrigan, who's wasn't highly productive in his time at Baltimore, but can be highly productive. I think paired with Fletcher Cox, that's really good. Then you have Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett coming off the edges. I feel like Elijah Qualls can be good, run stopping, goal line package, spell, Timmy Jerrigan and Fletcher Cox every once in a while because he played for a pretty good Washington defense. While that Washington defense wasn't insane when it came to run, I mean, he did really good at plugging up the A-gaps, making sure nothing in the middle gets too out of hand. I mean, there's only so much you can do to stop the Alabama run game. But I mean, it's for sixth round. You can't go wrong with a Washington defensive player this draft. You really can't. So overall, I mean, I'm gonna sound biased as heck, but I love this draft. I think this is one of the best drafts we had in the last couple of years, in my opinion. Sitting here as an Eagles fan, I really love it.
I think it addresses the needs, and I think you do it without getting a big flashy guy besides Derek Barnett. I'm going to agree with you, Mike. Obviously, I don't have the knowledge on this like you do, but I'll say this about Derek Barnett. About mid-season, when Tennessee started out 4-0 on the year, they had that Hail Mary versus Georgia. They won a very, very close game, versus Auburn this year, and people thought, like, oh, wow, is this Tennessee team, like, actually for real? Does Butch Jones have something going for him? Well, I'll tell you a little something about that team. Both those games that they beat Georgia and they beat Auburn on those close, well-fought victories, both those games in the second half, you want to know what players stood out in the second half defensively in both those games? I'm sure every person in the audience is going to guess the answer to this. It was Derek Barnett. I look at Derek Barnett, and I see way, way more than just a pass rusher. I see a guy who averaged 12.5 sacks, 50 tackles, was only a junior at Tennessee, a true junior, too. He did not redshirt. He came right in, and he was just fantastic this year. He's big, he's physical, he's 259 pounds, he's 6'3".
He's productive too.
He's so productive, he's so quick. The only thing that's wrong with him is just getting quick off the line. But like you said, Mike, you don't even need to get quick off the line with the type of defense the Eagles are running right now. And I mean, you just watch the highlights. The highlights explain for himself. The guy's so quick, he can get to the quarterback, he can cause pressure. And listen, we found that in this league, half the time you just got to get pressure on these guys because there's so many young new quarterbacks coming in who really don't know how to handle the pressure of the NFL. And when we're talking about like the Eagles and you're talking about Dak Prescott, who's a very, very talented quarterback, I'll give you that. But you get pressure on the man, and you even get pressure on Kirk Cousins and heck, even Eli Manning. That changes the game. And
exactly. And like when the Eagles were playing good with all those teams, what were they doing? The Cowboys when they were playing good with them in the first game they played them. They were getting pressure on Dak Prescott. And what happened? Dak Prescott had a very below average first 3.5 quarters when they were getting pressure on him. Then as soon as the Cowboys were like, okay, we're going to put 7 men in protection, they were doing good because you have Des Bryant who's just going to get open. And, when Dak Prescott gets time, any NFL quarterback can make a throw. So I just feel like not only in this division, all the NFL, even when you hit Tom Brady enough times, that's how the Giants won the 2 Super Bowls, you hit him enough. You need pressure. You can never have enough pass rush. Right. You can never have enough pass rush. So that's why I love this pick and personally love this draft class.
And you address the needs secondary-wise, too, obviously, adding, you said Jalen Mills has not turned out the way you would want Jalen Mills to turn out, but you really address that, too. And I look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, and I look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys coming off an awesome year, but really just not an awesome offseason.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here before the draft, and I'm like, okay, I want, 1 defensive end, 2 corners, I want 1 or 2 wide receivers, I want a linebacker, and another D tackle. And what do? We got all that. We got all that. So we did a good job addressing needs. Just hopefully these guys can turn out good, and get something cooking in Philadelphia because, God, I want a Super Bowl, man. I want one. I'm jealous of you.
Well, folks, I would say as of now, Mike's going to agree with me. My big winner here is by far the Philadelphia Eagles. I think my big loser is the Redskins not addressing enough that it really needed to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team in the NFC had a really good draft. I mean, I'm an Eagles fan, but like just from a whole football standpoint, I just think the Eagles definitely won this draft in this division. And I'm going to have to agree with you. I think the Redskins were probably in the lower half. The losers in this division, but it's not like they were losers because they drafted poorly. I mean, they still had a pretty solid draft. It's just a matter of fact. I think everybody in this division drafted very, very good.
Right. Well, folks, I don't know what else to say other than I'm starting to get choked up halfway through the show knowing this is the last one. But we promise, and I will reiterate promise, that this show will end off on the best note it's ever ended off, because when we come back, we got a lot to talk about. We got NBA, we got NHL, we got the truth, Paul Pierce himself. You won't want to miss it, folks.
No, he's not coming on the show, unfortunately. We called out to his agent. He said he couldn't make it. The flight then got canceled, so unfortunate. But
he can't make it today, but you know who can make it? Mike and Taylor, and we always can make it. We do it for you, folks. We love sports. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back, folks. We're going to shift it from the grass to the hardwood to the court, and we're at a very, very, very crucial point here in the hardwood point of sports because it is indeed the NBA playoffs. The first round wrapped up yesterday, obviously, with the Utah Jazz taking a very well-fought, hard-fought 7-game series over the LA Clippers. A lot to talk about with the LA Clippers, obviously, but we're going to talk about what we think so far of the NBA playoffs heading into round 2. The Boston Celtics very, very convincingly come back, beat the Washington Wizards yesterday. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers facing off against the Toronto Raptors tonight, a very, very good series. Out in the West, there's a lot to talk about. We have a Texas-themed series and the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston
Wild
Rockets.
West, baby.
The Wild, Wild West. And we have the Utah Jazz playing the Golden State Warriors.
Upset alert.
So I just broke it down for you as far as matchups go, but we're going to go a little bit more than just the matchups. We're going to talk about specific points, what we noticed so far, what we hope to notice, and what we think will turn out. Mike, I'm going to start out with you, and we're going to start out on the West Coast, and we're going to bring it to the East Coast. Mike, I want to start out with the Utah Jazz and the Golden State Warriors, and what I believe is the most interesting series right now in the NBA playoffs. Mike, you firmly believe the Utah Jazz can take this. Why do you believe that this Utah Jazz team, comparably to this Golden State Warriors team that just overwhelmingly has shook this entire Western Conference in the past 3 years, why do you think the Utah Jazz can take them out?
Well, let me tell you a little something about the Utah Jazz. Not only do they have new uniforms this year, which are very, very sharp, by the way.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just have it. They just have it all. No one talks about them because they play in Salt Lake City. So I mean, that's your reason, and they're called the Utah Jazz. So no one's gonna talk about them. But I mean, they're fourth in the league in defense, and yes, you probably hear the same thing over and over. Oh, the Warriors can lose to this team because they're good at defense. The Warriors can lose to this team because of that. The Warriors can lose to this team because of that. But here's the thing: every team that plays the Warriors plays the Warriors game. Now, if you look at all the teams the Warriors played during the regular season, and this team could beat the Warriors, they end up just getting the Warriors just running up and down, Steph doing all these crazy dribbles, just shooting a three, making it. Then the other team just comes down and try to take a shot within the first 15 seconds of the shot clock. Well, the Utah Jazz don't play that at all. Utah Jazz don't play that. Okay, Steph Curry will do this 3 seconds in his shot clock, shoot up a three, and he'll make it. Well, guess what the Utah Jazz are doing? Casual, inbound pass to George Hill.
Slow tempo.
Yeah, he's walking up the court. They're going to work a shot. They got Rudy Gobert in the middle. They're going to be moving around. They got moving parts. Then, with about 7 seconds on the shot clock, you're going to find Joe Johnson, who's going to be matched up against Steph Curry for some odd reason because all these off-ball screens. Then Joe Johnson is going to be in a post, fadeaway, 2 points. Bang, right there. 3 seconds off on the shot clock. They're going to take time. They're going to play their game. Utah Jazz don't play that. They're going to play their game and no one else's game. They can be getting smacked. Like, the Clippers will sometimes hand it to them, in certain quarters. They don't care. They're still going to go down, relax, just take their time and get their good shot. That's why they're shooting, 49% from the field. That's why they're shooting 39% from three-point range, because they take their time and they take good shots. And not only, in fact, they have Joe Johnson, Boris Diaw, George Hill, they got good vets. They got Gordon Hayward, Rudy Gobert, who there's no way in hell Zaza Pachulia is pulling one, a rebound over Rudy Gobert. Two, there's no way in hell he's going to score with Rudy Gobert within the same 2-foot radius as him. And it's going to be hard for the Warriors to get inside. They're going to stick to the 3-point line, and hey, the Warriors can shoot threes. But I think if there's no KD for the Warriors, and all that I just said about the Jazz, I don't think the Jazz are going to win this series. But I just don't see what there's no reason why they can't win 2, maybe even 3 games and push it to a 7-game series.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you, Mike. I think if any team matches up as well with the Warriors, it's gonna be the Utah Jazz, because when you look at this entire Western Conference, the Pacific Division in general, no team can even come close to the Warriors. Now we move to the Southwest. I look at one team that can probably compete with them. Actually, 2 teams that can. I'll put one team that probably can. One team that can is the Spurs. One team that probably can is the Houston Rockets. And then we shift it to OKC can handle them, Portland can handle them, Minnesota and Denver. So when it comes down to it, there's 3 teams, Houston, San Antonio, and Utah. And it just so happens Utah is playing them. And like you said, Mike, Utah matches up well because they're a slow-paced tempo team. When you think about the Golden State Warriors, they're flashy. They got Draymond Green, they got Klay Thompson, they got Steph Curry, they got Matt Barnes, who likes to shake it up all the time on the court, keep it aggressive, keep it fast-paced. God, we don't talk about Matt Barnes, though. But I think that overall, 51-31 first in their division this year. They won their division, and like you said, Mike, the roster speaks for itself. And what I think it's going to come down to in this series is how consistent can Gordon Hayward stay? Can he be a leader versus a tough Golden State Warriors team?
I think Gordon Hayward, he's not an elite player yet, but he if he wants to become an elite player, this is where it happens.
Right.
But, because I think if the Jazz have a chance of winning 2 to 3 games, possibly even winning the series, Gordon Hayward has to come out, and he has to play even better than he did against the Clippers, and he played really good against the Clippers. But, even if he plays at that level, you have people like Derek Favors, where if Rudy Gobert gets in foul trouble, you have a wily vet, Derek Favors coming in. Derek Favors can do some stuff. you got a good roster where you look around. You got a couple Spurs champions on there. Joe Ingles, the Australian guy who's just balling out. I mean, where the hell did he come from? I mean, he just can't miss under the 3-point line. He's a great
Rodney
passer.
Hood's fantastic.
And Rodney Hood, struggled in the Clippers series finding a shot. But
George Hill.
if he can,
they've all been great.
If Rodney Hood can find a shot against the Warriors, I mean, that's just 3-ball after 3-ball because he's one of the better shooters in the league if he can find a shot. And I think they got a chance. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but they got a chance, man. They really do. And they got a puncher's chance.
Yeah, like you said, Rodney Hood, I mean, 10.4 points per game. He's not supposed to be the top caliber guy, though. He's supposed to be where he's supposed to be. Yeah. And I think it explains itself, Mike. And I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think the Golden State Warriors will take this, but you need to keep eyes on the Utah Jazz because they're easily the most interesting
definitely
team.
A series worth watching.
They're easily the most interesting
watch them get
team.
Swept now because, we said the Blackhawks were going to Stanley Cup. Watch them get swept.
Yeah, but we thought the Blackhawks would win the Stanley Cup, but apparently the Nashville Predators are nice.
We'll save it for later. Man. But I like the Jazz. Hey, America, watch a couple of those games. You won't want to miss it, trust me.
But you know what we won't save for later? We'll save it for right now. Actually, you know what? We will talk about it right now. We're going to talk about the Wild West. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Texas.
And we're down in Houston again.
And we're down in Houston where it's popping in Houston right now because the Rockets are playing very good basketball out there. They may have a bit of a roadblock here, Mike. They're playing the San Antonio Spurs.
A little bit. I mean, there's this guy called Greg Popovich and his team.
He has a couple of rings, right?
I think so. And
he's a good coach, I hear.
I mean, this team called the San Antonio Spurs, who's pretty good. And this man named Kawhi Leonard, who
can play defense apparently.
Yeah, I think he can actually shoot now. I mean,
and then he can play offense.
Yeah, it's crazy. Coming into the NBA, Kawhi Leonard couldn't hit the side of a barn with his jump shot, but now he's automatic. I mean, he's good. This is going to be a well-fought series, but I just think it comes down to the fact that the Spurs can play defense and the Rockets can't.
Oh no, 100%.
I think it just comes down to spots. Like James Harden, in my opinion, I already gave you my take 5 last episode. Is not only closely winning the MVP race. I think he's the runaway MVP winner, but I think he's gonna keep him at series. I think he'll will him to 1 or 2 wins, but I just eventually, worst case scenario, I got the Spurs in 6. I just feel like it's not a good matchup for the Rockets. I mean, the Rockets can score with the best of them. They're the best offense in the league behind the Warriors. They really match up. I just think just the Spurs are just too fundamentally sound, too well coached, just too everything because they're just the San Antonio Spurs and their coach is Greg Popovich. I just think at the end of the day, you just got the Spurs in 5, and worst case scenario, they're taking this in 6.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to agree with you. I think the Spurs win this in 7, but if there's one way the Houston Rockets win this, besides the fact that James Harden has to step up, one player that needs to step up, and I reiterate this, needs to step up is Eric Gordon, shooting guard. I really think that Eric Gordon has not performed up to standards,
especially in the playoffs. Him and Ryan Anderson definitely have to step up. I agree with you on that.
And also, I look at the Brazilian. I look at Nene. He's fantastic in the post. He's a big guy. He can get rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming.
He's going to be big.
Yeah, he was
in the stretch in long game in the late games.
He proved to be a big factor when they beat the Thunder in 5. The fourth quarter where they needed some buckets. Nene was there for a clutch rebound. He was there for grabbing a clutch loose ball. Nene is that just that consistent.
He's that guy that you need when you got 2 minutes left on the clock and you're down by 5 points and you desperately need to take a shot.
I mean,
you need to take an aggressive shot. And let's say you miss that aggressive shot. Who's going to be there? Who's going to get there to get that rebound, put in that 2 points, bring it to a 3-point game?
I mean, if I had to go to a bar with one guy and pick up women, it'll be with Nene.
Right.
I mean,
100%.
100%. So I really think Nene I mean, he stepped up in the Thunder series, but he has to keep that role going if they have any chance of beating the Spurs.
Right. And I think it's interesting. I think this matchup will play up well, but I would have to agree with you, Mike. The Spurs are definitely taking this.
Yes, I mean we're talking about how the Spurs are consistent. Let's move it over to the East. You know what is a consistent factor in the Eastern Conference? LeBron James.
Right.
And you know who's going to stop him? No one. You want to know why? Because he's LeBron James, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It really does.
I mean,
I don't hate LeBron. I mean, I just hate him how he's just in the finals every year. But you got to respect that the man's good, and rightfully so. He's a top 5 player of all time. But I mean, the Raptors are good. They limped into the playoffs, in my opinion. I feel like they could have finished better.
The Kyle Lowry injury towards the end was a big one.
I just don't see him beating the Cavs, really. I don't know how much we can talk about this other than it's just the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have LeBron.
I think they're more well
they have a healthy roster. I just don't see the Raptors beating them, in my opinion.
I think they're more well prepped in comparison to last year when they were in a very similar position. I just think right now, like you said, Mike, there's just an overwhelming amount of talent in Cleveland at the moment. And
if the Raptors have any chance, I mean, this name we really haven't heard about all year, but I mean, Serge Ibaka has to step up. I mean, Serge
You
Ibaka.
acquire him in that midseason.
Exactly. He's been to a finals. He had a 3-1 lead in the conference finals last year over the Warriors, with the Thunder. He's been in big playoff games. He's performed well in big
Played for
playoff
OKC
games.
in an NBA final.
Exactly. Like, he needs to step up. He's a guy you bring in. I thought when the Raptors bring in Serge Ibaka, they're by far the second best team in the East, and they're going to finish second. Well, little did I know the Celtics are going to have as good of a year as they would have. I thought they would have been good, but not this good. But Serge Ibaka needs to step up in this playoffs. Like, I'm not talking about, just averaging, like 16 points, 8 rebounds. I'm talking about, like, he needs to step up. I mean, you're Serge Ibaka for a reason. The Raptors went out and got you for a reason. You need to step up because this is why they got you, because you're a playoff vet, you're a good player, and you need to step up right here.
And you look at this roster, I think that, like I said, my big emphasis here was more prepped because okay, first off, when we talk about players who aren't stepping up, can we talk about Corey Joseph for a second?
Yeah.
And the underwhelming year he has had, both postseason and regular season. But when you look at this roster, Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, DeMar Carroll, Corey Joseph, you really don't need much more. I think you match up very well defensively. I think as far as between this and Cleveland, when you look at the defensive mindset here, I think they can take him defensively. But like we were talking about earlier, the Cleveland Cavaliers simply just have too much playoff experience, way too much talent. LeBron James,
you just have LeBron James. It's just
Channing Frye, J.R. Smith,
you don't even have to say anything else. You just have LeBron James.
Kyle Korver. It's overwhelming. There's one guy on here that I look at and I go, oh, there's like every single player on here except this man, I'm like, he's going to just make a huge impact, and that's Dante Jones, and he's a shooting guard, and there's a reason he's not going to make a big impact, because it's Dante Jones.
Exactly.
And he's hardly on the roster. He's hardly getting in games. Everyone who's even getting in games is Richard Jefferson, who's still old, who was still averaging 2.3 points per game per season, is bringing it in the postseason right now with rebounds. And we talk about one guy I really, really want to focus on is Kyrie Irving hitting that game-winning shot last year. I think when you got Kyrie Irving and you got LeBron James and you got Deron Williams late in games and you got J.R. Smith late in games, there's only one player on the Raptors where I go, wow, he's going to bring it in the fourth quarter every single time, and that's DeMar DeRozan, So I just think, like, right now, it's going to be a close one, but I think Cleveland wins this in 6.
I think they win in 5, honestly.
You think so?
I just think the Cavs are really motivated this year because they've been getting a lot of shade saying, oh, the Cavs aren't that good this year. Well, they got LeBron, so they are.
And they seem to be, since they were almost the first seed. The Celtics kind of took that away from them last second, but deservedly so altogether. They more so deserved to be that first seed in my opinion, even being a Celtics fan. So,
yeah. So speaking of Celtics, they're up 1-0. They played really good against the Wizards.
And they were down by a lot of points there in the first 5 points. They had me for a minute. They really had me. I was like...
I couldn't watch the first half of that game. I check in, towards the end of the first quarter, and it's 23-11. I'm like, wow, the Wizards making some moves. But, the Celtics came back. They showed some fight. Isaiah Thomas losing a 2-3.
33 points, 19 in the first half.
I think the Celtics finally got it together.
I think it's...
I think those 2 losses to the Bulls are a wake-up call. They did catch a break with Rajon Rondo getting hurt. But that's what they need. You'll take the wins as they come, and hey, they got a 1-0 series lead right now, and I really think they can do some stuff.
Yeah,
I think they got it going. I think they'll just finish out the series in 6.
Honestly, Mike, I think you said it's totally best. They got it going, and there was a lot of talk about when Rajon Rondo went out with that injury. This is the only reason why the Celtics are in this position, but I respectfully disagree. I saw a lot of progression after that game too. They went down 2-0 and won 4 straight. 2 of those were in Chicago, on Chicago's home court, where they just got obliterated, man. Like,
3 of those ones were in Chicago.
3 of them were on Chicago's home court. Thank you for correcting me. And I just think right now, with going down 16-0 in that game early on, the Wizards just had it going, man. They were shooting. Beal was on, Wall was on, Gortat was getting rebounds. We weren't getting rebounds. And when you were a Celtics fan, you had to sit there and think, oh boy, what does this look like? This looks exactly like game 1, where we came in underprepared. We came in not physically ready, not mentally ready. And I just think after watching that game, Mike, you couldn't have said it best. I think this is the wake-up call. I think with the whole Isaiah Thomas situation, I just don't think he was really ready for those first 2 games, not being around the team. I don't think the team was ready. This team loves, and I mean loves, Isaiah Thomas. Boston loves Isaiah Thomas. They rally around this man. He is the guy. Tooth got knocked out, came back, scored 33 points, 19 in the first half. The man was unreal yesterday. Bradley Beal was fantastic too, 27 points. unfortunately, his team couldn't back it up enough. And I just think the way they finished out this game, starting out down 16 nothing,
holding on to that lead
to win the game by 12.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a very gutsy win, and props to them.
and, I mean, there's no denying the fact that DC sports teams, when they get to the second round, it's just not. It doesn't work out, and they aren't fit to get past the second round and going to conference finals. And I really don't think this is going to help the Wizards' mindset whatsoever, getting just an overwhelming start, and then the Celtics just storming back. And I mean, I'm just going to be honest, Avery Bradley turning it on, Jay Crowder turning it on, I mean, Jerry Rozier turning it on, Isaiah Thomas. It's just, altogether, this team looks like this is the Celtics. It's like, oh boy, here they are again. Okay, word, it's the Celtics. But I think overall, you're asking me, I think they win this series 4-1. And I honestly, Mike, I think they convince. A lot of people would disagree with me. They said this was going to be a tough matchup for the Celtics with the amount of talent the Wizards had in comparison to the Celtics offensively and defensively. Defensively, the Wizards are a more sound team. So there was a lot to look into it. But I think after this game one, the Celtics have shown us why they're still the Celtics. And I think this is going to be huge for them because I think a lot of people are still doubting them. Obviously, the Chicago victory wasn't too convincing, even though they won 4 straight. I guess that's not convincing enough for the sports world, but this is big. I think if they can come in here if they can even sweep the Wizards, I'll go that far because I think after watching that yesterday, they look like they're fine. I think if they can even sweep the Wizards, like that's huge going into most likely a Cleveland matchup in the conference finals.
So sitting here, we're in the all right. Picture yourselves. We're in the Verizon Center right now. The Wizards. Looking like they could change. It's only game one. The Celtics are playing good. It might be inevitable that they can't beat the Celtics, losing the second round. But we're sitting here in the Verizon Center. We're taking off the court. And we're going down to the ice, and we have another second-round matchup in there, and the series might be over before this one, but I'm going to let you talk about it. I'm going to let you go short and sweet about it. I'm a Flyers fan, so the world already knows I hate the Penguins. I want to see the Capitals win, but I hate to break it to you, I won't. So, Taylor, just take it over for a couple minutes. Say what you got to say.
Okay, so there's a lot that can be said on this topic. Right now, where the Capitals are at, you're down 2-0 in a series. Listen, you've been down 2-0 to the Penguins before. You've gone to a Game 7. You went to a Game 7 in 2009. You went to a Game 6 last year, even though you were down, 3-1 in that series at one point, even after winning a Game 1. But there's something interesting you need to know about the Capitals. There have been, in the past 25 years, only 2 times, and they were both in the 90s. They were both in the 90s. There were 2 times the Capitals beat the Penguins in the playoffs. Guess how that series started both times? 1-0 Penguins. Well, it's 2-0 Penguins right now. You just came off a 6-2 loss. It was quite disappointing. And I'm going to reiterate, and I really want to bring this up. Listen, I love Braden Holtby. I think Braden Holtby should get signed to a career contract in Washington. I think he is the goalie. I think Washington loves Holtby. I think he's a great dude. He does a lot for the local D.C. community. But I would not be shocked, and I really wouldn't be if we put in Gruby for this game right now. And I know a lot of people are like, why would you do that? It's the playoffs. But
I don't know if that's a smart move. I'm sorry. I'm
I
not
think
you off,
I'm sorry right now, but I just really don't see how Braden Holtby's going to handle this Penguins team. He has been shook. He has
I don't.
He's shook, man.
I can see your point why he's shook.
He's really
but honestly,
shook.
at the end of the point, I don't know if Michael Grubauer is. You're down 2-0.
Philip Gruber.
It's Philip. My fault.
It's all good.
He's a backup for the Capitals on
It's
that.
all
But
good.
I honestly think you're down 2-0. You just need to keep your best guys in there. It sucks. I feel for you, dude. I want the Capitals to win the series. I hate the Penguins. I just can't read it. I hate the Penguins, but I think if you guys just keep going, you can beat them. It's just, geez, your goalie does have to stop some shots.
Well,
and your goalie does have to stop some shots.
Here's the thing, there can be a lot that's said on, and I did a Take 5 on this. I talk every single episode about how this should be the year, and rightfully so. The pieces are there. They were added. Shattenkirk in the offseason was Leontis telling the D.C. area that he wanted that cup, that he was serious. He knows how loyal this fan base is. They suffer through this every year. They watch this. Capitals fans see this all too familiarly. And listen, I think right now the first thing that you need to address is you need to be smarter in the neutral zone, not giving up stupid passes to Sidney Crosby, because the Penguins are incredible in transition. They're incredible of making fast, quick plays happen. And when you're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins and you got so much speed on the offensive side, you just really can't have too many of those fast breaks. And they gave up way too many. 3 of the goals came that way. So I guess I'll say this, but tonight, obviously, Game 3, And I will go this far seasons on the line tonight because if they go down 3-0, there's no possible point of return if they go down.
I think your recipe for success, if you're a Capitals fan and Capitals player, is just keep going where you're going. Here's your only problem. It's just Marc-Andre Fleury's hot and Braden Holtby is not.
Yeah.
Now, if you look, I know you watched that first period in Game 2. I mean, if I'm sitting here and like I just see the first 5 minutes of that period,
It's
I'm like
0-0. It's not
exactly. I'm thinking, wow, well the Capitals are gonna walk out of the first period with a 3-0 lead, but it's just Marc-Andre Fleury just standing on his head, and that's really what it comes down to the playoffs. Last year, Matt Murray did it for him. This year, it's Marc-Andre Fleury is doing it for him.
And that's the thing.
You got to stand on your head, and Braden Holtby is not standing on his head. And listen, if he just plays like what Braden Holtby knows how to play, I think they're fine. It's just the Capitals just got to find a way to squeeze a couple more past Marc-Andre Fleury, because 2 goals is not going to get enough, but Braden Holtby does have to step up here because your offense is getting enough pressure. I think it's just a matter of time before you break through. It has to be tonight for you, though. It really does.
And I mean, like I said, and Mike, you couldn't have said it best last year with Matt Murray obviously coming in and just completely just being the storyline of the NHL playoffs last year, being the backup goalie, winning the cup as the goalie. You want to know something about that series versus the Pittsburgh Penguins? In the 4 games that the Capitals lost to the Penguins, 3 of those they outshot the Penguins. But here's the thing, and I think you said it best, Mike. You could have brought it up a better point right now. Braden Holtby, here's the difference in why the Penguins are winning. They're winning the series 2-0, and why they just won this game 6-2 is because Marc-Andre Fleury can stop 15 straight ringers from Oshie, Backstrom, Williams, Ovi, Orlov.
Everybody.
He can stop 15 straight, but here's why the Penguins are going to win, because Braden Holtby can't. Marc-Andre Fleury, he can take shot after shot after shot, pressure after pressure. All it takes is the Washington Capitals taking 15 straight shots at the net and then something dumb happening, like Beagle turning the puck over, Schmidt making a stupid pass, Penguins get quick transition, 2-on-1, bang, top net. And that's the difference is Braden Holtby gets shook in this position, and I emphasize this, there's just one thing you cannot do if you're the Capitals. You can't be shook. You're down 2-0.
You can't be scared, really.
You're down 2-0. It's what it is. You're down 2-0. You lost 2 games, and you know what? We can pout. We can talk a lot about years past. We can talk about how painful this is and how, here it goes again. But you're down 2-0. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do? You gotta win 2 in Pittsburgh. So I think the best, like you said, Mike, keep it going. Keep the pressure offensively. Shots are going to fall eventually. Braden, you got to be sharp tonight, my man. This is probably the biggest game of his career.
Yeah, man.
This is the biggest game of Braden Holtby's career.
I think the only thing you can do if you're a Capitals affiliate is just keep the faith. But one fan base that's definitely keeping the faith and has a lot of the faith up there in Ottawa. They're up 2-0 against the Rangers, and they're playing some really good hockey. They won both those games by 1 goal. But, hey, if the Rangers score 5, the Senators will score 6. The Rangers score 1, the Senators squeak 5 2. I like the Senators as a team. I think they play very systematic hockey. They play very, true to the game of hockey, if that makes sense. And really, it's just the only thing with the New York Rangers is you just got to beat Henrik Lundqvist more than they beat your goalie, because that's the only way. That's how simple the game comes down to. You got to score more goals than the other team. But it's just you got to be able to beat Henrik Lundqvist. And Ottawa Senators have shown, hey, if my goalie's getting beat 5 times, we'll beat your goalie 6 times.
Right.
Jean-Gabriel Pageau scoring 4 goals in his last game. It really helps out when you have a player stepping up like that. But, Erik Karlsson in the first year was a little unhealthy. Now he's getting more and more healthy, and I'm really happy to see it, because just like the
Craig
Penguins,
Anderson's standing on his head.
And just like the Penguins, I hate the Rangers. It's just if the Senators can win one of these games in MSG, I think they're golden and they're making it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right, and I think you could have said it best, Mike, and just Derek Brassard bringing in that postseason experience, that overall NHL experience, scoring 8 points this postseason. Erik Karlsson, Bobby Ryan, Dion Phaneuf was a fantastic addition in the midseason.
Yeah,
and they're playing great hockey. And they're up on the New York Rangers team. I had making the Stanley Cup, and like you said, Mike, Henrik Lundqvist is usually superb, but you just saw the Ottawa Senators beat him 6-5. They needed 6-5 to win that game. They needed 6 goals.
Double OT, man.
6 goals, Mike, to win a playoff game.
Against Henrik Lundqvist. You know how if a team scores 6 goals against Henrik Lundqvist in a playoff game, they're hot and it's destined to be something. So right. I really think they can make an Eastern Conference Finals run, and hopefully, hey, they defeated the Bruins. Hopefully they can defeat the Rangers. And I hate to say it to you, but it's looking like the Penguins are going to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Hey, they're just going to have to beat evil through this whole Eastern Conference, because, hey, man, I hate all 3 of those teams I mentioned. And I think I got faith in the Senators. I'm pulling for the Senators to beat all those teams, because, geez, I don't want to see anybody else but the Senators or Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals. And right now, the best chance is the Senators making a Cup final run.
Right.
For sure. So another team that was kind of in the Capitals' boat, the Ducks. They lost games 1 and 2 at home to an upstart Edmonton Oilers team who are shouted out in my Take 5. I finally got a prediction right. Connor McDavid with. Did you watch that game last night?
Oh, fantastic! He's always fantastic, but
Filthy
that game specifically,
goal.
yeah.
Filthy goal. I mean, just cut back, just top right. I mean, like it's easy. I mean, he's gonna be better than Sidney Crosby. But I mean, the Ducks were in the same spot. They go down 0-2 after 2 straight games at home. But hey, all you need to do, like the Ducks came out 3 goals in the first 10 minutes. That's what you need. You just need to come out and you just need to start fast, and the Ducks did that. So hopefully the Capitals can watch that game yesterday and say, hey, we need to come out quick, and we actually need to score this time, except for coming out quick, And the Ducks did that, and the Ducks are a good team. I didn't think they were going to make it this far. I thought the Flames would beat them because I thought the Flames would do the same thing the Oilers were doing. Fast, young talent that just puts the puck in the net. But I think the Oilers are just going to eventually come out the series because I really think Connor McDavid. I mean, it's a lot to say right now, but he's definitely a top 3 player in the NHL. Really, I mean, this dude's filthy. He just almost reached 100 points this year. I mean, God, he's good.
Yeah, I think the Oilers can take this series very convincing. Right now, up 2-0 in this series.
Yeah, they're up 2-1 now.
That's right. Yeah, the Ducks just won yesterday.
So if they can win this game 4 at home, I really don't see a reason
which is
why
tomorrow,
they don't win.
correct?
It is
at Rogers Place.
Actually, no, it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah, they got a couple day break.
Okay. So I think, building off your point, Mike, I'll be quite honest with you. There's not much that really shows me how the Ducks can win this series. I actually have Edmonton getting into this Western Conference Final right now, but I don't know if you can agree with this point, Mike. Do you think, even with just Connor McDavid being like a rookie and just the leadership, do you think this Edmonton Oilers team can overcome maybe even a Nashville Predators team right now in the Western Conference to make a Stanley Cup?
Well, if we want to transition to that series and talk about the Nashville Predators, I mean, I just don't think there's a team hotter in the playoffs right now besides the Predators. I mean,
and Peke Rinne is just fantastic.
I mean, yeah, you can make argument. You can make arguments
goal.
that the Penguins are hotter than the Predators. Well, no, they're not. They're just the Penguins. They're just playing the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey that we all know and hate.
Yeah.
But the Nashville Predators, I mean, Peter Laviolette's a good coach. He brought the Flyers to Stanley Cup Finals. He won one with the Hurricanes. I mean, he's a good coach. I mean, if I'm sitting here as a Flyers fan, I kind of wish we never fired him because he's a very good coach. He's just shown at whatever team he goes to. And I mean, it all starts with their defense. I mean, looking at Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi, PK Subban. I mean, they're just playing solid defense. And something that really stood out to me was Game 3. They were up 2-1, and there was about 6 minutes left in the third period, and they had the puck in the zone for like a minute and a half to 2 minutes straight. Just they went through like 2 line changes. They were just cycling the puck, going around. And at the end, they just passed it to the point, and a bomb shot with Roman Josi goes top right. I mean, that's just a thing. They possess the puck. They let their defense go bombs away, and man, they're playing good hockey right now. I really don't see how the Blues are going to beat them. I think the Preds can get this in 5.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is 6. I don't see how the Blues push it to a St. Louis Game 7. Really,
it's overwhelming right now. Even with them winning that game yesterday, the 3-1 victory, which was solid. That was huge for the Blues, by the way. Tarasenko stepping up like that. But I think it's just overwhelming right now to see what the Nashville Predators are doing. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out, but unfortunately, folks, our time's cutting short.
Can we actually see a Predators-Senators Stanley Cup, please?
We can.
Can we actually see the most random Stanley Cup ever?
A Nashville-Ottawa Stanley Cup?
That'll be a random
If it's
Stanley
not
Cup
the Capitals,
ever.
let's make it the Predators. Let's make it the Senators.
Yeah, let's talk about something that is not random and we all know and love. Paul Pierce played his final NBA game yesterday, and you, as a Celtics fan, I mean, I know you probably have a deep affection for Paul Pierce. I have a deep affection for Paul Pierce because, hey, I'm a basketball guy. I just Paul Pierce is my guy. His competitiveness, his talent, his just love for the game, his whole personality. I mean, he's the truth, man. Yeah. He really is.
Paul Pierce, I'd like to first off, I can say a lot about you. I'd like to congratulate you on an incredible career. I can't thank you enough for what you did for the Celtics, bringing us an NBA title in 2008, finishing his career with 1,343 games played, started 1,285 of those, averaged on his career around 20 points per game, over 26,300 career points, played his career in Brooklyn, LA, DC for a brief stint. Celtics, obviously, I think he'll be remembered as a Celtic, one of the original core pieces of that Big Three. I guess we can officially say that the Big Three is dead and gone, and they are all...
Unfortunately, they're dead and gone. Hey, there's still a glimmer of hope. Ray Allen might be able to come back.
Really just a basketball guy. Just everything you hear about the guy is great. He really has an IQ for the game, loves the sport, loves the game. He's going to be missed hurts a lot that he really didn't get a lot.
Man, just a huge shout out to Paul Pierce now. I mean, I know you're a Celtics fan and everything. What was your favorite Paul Pierce moment?
That's tough. I just think overall, just that 2008 Easter Conference Final, just collectively the way he stepped up, him and Ray, the way they stepped up. I mean, just totally and then bringing that title in 08 to the Lakers. You're never going to forget that 08 year. I know that's probably the most obvious one, but it's impossible. I think that's, when you think about Paul Pierce, I think about from the way his career started in the early 2000s, when he was the only guy really the Celtics had at that time, and when they were kind of a middle-of-the-pack conference team. So I just think the way he stepped up, I think the buzzer beater to beat the Lakers in Game 2 of the NBA Finals in 08, I just think it wasn't technically a buzzer beater. There was 1 second left on the clock.
My favorite Paul Pierce moment, I mean, he wasn't wearing green at this time. He was up in D.C. playing for the Wizards. And it was, I forget what year exactly, but it was Game 3 of an opening round, and they're playing the Atlanta Hawks, and he gets the ball 5 seconds at the top of the key, elbow area in his sweet spot. He said, against Dennis Schroeder, which is a mismatch, about a couple seconds left on the clock, fades back, banks it in. Crowd goes nuts. He's laying on the ground. Paul Pierce is the man and everything. Post-game interview, Chris Broussard asked him an array of questions. Last question he asked him, did you call bank? I call game.
I call game.
Game, man. I call game. That's my favorite. Not only Paul Pierce moment all the time, maybe even NBA moment all the time. I mean, that was just awesome, and it's just Paul Pierce. So you had to love when he said that because it's Paul Pierce.
And it was just.
I mean, it's amazing, man. I call game.
When you think of Paul Pierce, just what embodies Paul Pierce? A 3-point shooter and the buzzer. I want to. A lot of people nickname him the truth. Clutch. Everything about the man was clutch. You think about how many buzzer beaters he had in this game, how many big shots, the big plays, just. What he did in Boston. Paul, congratulations. Enjoy retirement. We're going to miss you a lot.
We're going to miss you, Paul. We're going to miss you, man.
Well, Mike, I hate to bring it up to you, but it looks like we're at the end of our show here.
End of the first season. It was a great first season, man.
It was great.
It really was.
We've had a lot of fun this year on the show, guys.
A lot of time for
thank you for listening every week in and out, showing us support. We appreciate it so much. And for the final time until the fall, that's going to do it for the First Line. Make sure to join us in the fall. We will be moving in to our new houses on August 5th, hopefully to get a show out about mid-August, right before the NFL season starts.
Right before, and football is going to be right around when the show comes on, so it's going to be two good things at once, man.
It'll be exciting. We need to give an honorary mention to Massimo Marchiano. Could not be here, our host.
Miss you on this show today, buddy, but, we love you, man.
Mass, we love you. Thank you so much for putting up with us all year. And Mike, my man, thank you for doing this week in, week out.
Yeah, same here, Taylor.
And
it was great.
We get to share our passion for sports with you guys, and that makes us very happy. So for the final time, thank you for joining us on the First Line. I'm Taylor Snyder, joined here with Mike. Mike, last closing remark before the summer?
Playoffs are about to end. Draft just happened. We're going into the summer on a good note. Great show today we have for you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, TFL Sports Talk. And, enjoy the shows, listen to them on repeat because we say a lot of cool stuff. And can't wait to get back going in the fall, man.
Hey, man, I'm going to just say thank you to Mike and thank you to Mass and everyone who gave me this opportunity to talk about sports. It's only going up here, folks. Thank you for joining this year. Have a great summer. Good luck on finals, everyone. And make sure to tell your mom you love her because moms are everything. Go Moms.
Yep. Cheers.